Welcome back again, ladies and gentlemen, to what might be the final moments of our first playthrough of Chaos Child. We're on our way to meet Sakuma and possibly run into the mind-controlled Sarika. We don't know what's going to happen, or if we're even going to survive. We're going practically alone with just Shinjo, who probably won't even join us in the building. Everyone else is leaving and trying to get to Akihabara, but we'll see how things go. Shinjo's even finding it a little bit awkward. We're driving into the festival. He says it's quiet, huh?
Hi.
Yeah. Shinjo said, mostly to himself from the driver's seat. The Shibuya intersection was overflowing with people. They were all looking up at the footage of the Memorial Park being displayed on the big TV screens. The time was 10:21 p.m. 7 minutes until the time when the earthquake began 6 years ago. When the time arrived, there would be a moment of silent prayer and the festival would reach its finale. Everyone at the festival seemed to be heading for the park or the intersection in front of the station to participate. I could see a man who looked like a member of the city council on screen. From the subtitles, he seemed to be giving a speech about the restoration project. Not again, get your head down. Yeah. Shinjo had gotten this car just to take us out of Shibuya. The windows were tinted so I didn't have to worry about anyone seeing me, but there was no way to hide from anyone looking at me from the front. Just in case, I kept myself as far down in the space below the seat as I could. We'd run into a lot of roadblocks once we'd entered this area, with the volunteer staff stopping us from moving forward. Each time Shinjo showed his police notebook and explained this was a police car, and each time they'd let us through. But that meant it was taking twice as long as usual. It'll be close. We might not actually make it by 10:28 p.m., Shinjo said, as he slowly weaved the car through the crowds of people. I'm just grateful you're giving me a lift. I never have made it to Hikario on my own. If you get there later, you're more likely to run into Sakuma. You're going anyway, right? Yeah. I could see Shinjo's face in the rearview mirror. He'd put his fingers up to the bridge of his nose, and his expression was pained. As a policeman, this is the worst thing I could possibly do. I'm sending a minor into a dangerous situation. He looks happy about it, though. Look at that smug look on his face. This guy's like, yeah, bad idea, but hey. If he's in the theater cube, I'd like to go with you and arrest him, but nothing that proves his guilt. And he can mind control. Like, no, you just shoot him and say, like, I heard him admitting it, and he was trying to kill a kid. Like, you can say something like, there was no video evidence, but he was trying to kill this kid. He was trying to kill this kid. The kid's a witness, too. It's like, that guy tried to kill me. He admitted to killing everyone else. We have him on record we have him literally recorded on audio as admitting to all the murders. And he was trying to frame us and kill him. Like, come on, man. He said if you didn't kill yourself, he'd kill Sarika, so he was, like, gonna kill himself over that, you know. Any number of things you could probably, like, bullshit your way. Although I don't know if it passed, like, lie detector or someone's bullshit test. If you have to say that, if you have to, like, make an excuse, there's plenty of ways to say that, there's plenty of ways to say that. Like, the kid had a knife, I didn't notice it. They were fighting with... He, like, sliced him open, because they have, like, D-swords, right? You're just like, oh, the kid fought his dad and killed him. It was clearly self-defense, though, as he was, like, threatening him or some shit. His dad's also the one... You could entirely truthfully say that, like, his dad's the one that said he'd kill himself and was, like, baiting him to come out here. Like, you'd 100% truthfully be able to say, yeah, his dad called and said, oh, you're gonna be killing yourself today. Better show up. And, like, he actually showed up. And then they fought and there was violence. Like, that would be perfectly reasonable and 100% truthful.
上層部にも圧力がかかっている。まるで安物の刑事ドラマだな。
And someone's putting pressure on the higher-ups in the police department, too. It's like a cheap detective drama.
委員会っていうのは
Is the
そんな
committee
に強い権
really
力を
that
持ってるんです
powerful?
か？詳しいことはほとんど誰も知らない。いや、
Almost no one knows the
知っ
details.
た者は闇に葬られてきた。
The person who did was buried and forgotten, actually. Is their real name CERN? Like straight out of Steins Gate? Irritated, Shinjo swerved the car around a group of pedestrians that were standing in the middle of the street. I ducked down so I couldn't be spotted from the outside. It was a little cramped.
昼間言ってた新庄さんの先輩もですか？
Was that the person you were talking about this afternoon? I remembered him talking about that. About how this case was his way of avenging a detective he respected a lot. Shinjo ignored me and kept looking forward. I felt like his silence was a yes.
Yashiro!
Yashiro!
なんだ？
Shinjo lowered the window just a crack to hear what was going on outside.
どうした？もう終わっちまうぞ！
Where are you? It's almost over.
ヘタレのレッテル貼られんぞ！
Everyone's gonna think you're a screw up.
宮代拓郎！出てこいや！
Yashiro, come out. 酔っ払いか。Sounds like a bunch of drunks to me, yeah. It's either that or those radical Miyashiro fans. In front of us, by the side of the road, was a van advertising the Restoration Festival, and a group of people had climbed on top of it. They must have been college-aged, and they were holding beers in their hands. Wrong-siders, huh? Hearing them or even seeing them was upsetting. I leaned back into the seat, closed my eyes, and lowered my head again.
Kunosato-san mo tamani sou iu na.
Kunosada uses that word too sometimes. Shinjo closed the window and started to drive away from all the commotion.
情弱情報弱者の略だったか。
Wrong-siders means on the wrong side of the information divide, right?
ええ。
Yeah. I watched all the drunks pass by the other side of the tinted windows.
彼らは知らないし、知ろうとしないんです。自分たちが煽ってる相手のことも、その相手がどんな気持ちなのかも。
They don't know anything and they don't want to know. They don't know about the people manipulate. They don't know about the people manipulating them or what those people want. What those people they're talking about are going through. Violence, murder, the darkness in human hearts. They think they understand these things because they read or hear about them, but they don't ever think about what they must really be like.
君は会った時から知るという行為にこだわっていたな。
Ever since I first met you, I could tell knowing was very important to you. The first time I met Shinjo was in the Love Hotel case.
君たちが勝手に現場に入り込んでいた。
You broke into the crime scene on your own? Yeah, that. He was right. Shinjo was the one in charge of that case. That's how we'd first met. Yeah, it was really funny. Remember passing out in terror from seeing a body?
これから尾上に会おうとしているのも何かを知るためなんだろう。
You're going to see Onoe because there's something you want to know, right?
はい。
Yeah. I had to know what Sarika was really after and the real reason she'd come into existence.
そうか。言ってみれば自分のことを知るためなんだ。
That's right. You could say, I'm gonna find out about myself. What had I wanted during the earthquake? What wish had created her? I realized for the first time that I was trying to find out more about myself than Sarika.
先輩もそんな人だったよ。
That's the same kind of person he was. Huh? I looked in the rearview mirror again. Shinjo was still watching the traffic in front of him. Rest in peace, this guy's detective friends.
とにかく知ろうとすることに対して貪欲な人だった。そのためなら世間の常識も警察の理屈も関係ない。
That detective, he was obsessed with finding things out. He was willing to do whatever it took, even if it meant going against the rest of the police force.
よく百瀬さんに怒られていたらしい。突っ走りすぎだって。
Momose used to get mad at him all the time. She said he was getting in too deep.
そうだったんですか。
I see. Shinjo's voice took on a strangely different character. His tone changed from one of nostalgia to one of sorrow.
そして
And then
先輩は突っ走りすぎた。
you finally got in too deep. That was the answer to his silence before, too. Had he been killed by the committee?
先輩の最後を俺はよく知らない。ただ先輩は満足だったろう。少なくとも後悔はしていないはずだ。
I I don't know how he died, but he must have been satisfied. At least, I don't think he had any regrets.
でもな、
But
だからといって先輩の死を認めるわけにはいかない。俺は先輩に追いつけなかったし、止めることもできなかった。俺は
doesn't mean I can just accept his death.
悔しいんだ。
Couldn't get to him in time. I just couldn't stop him. It's frustrating.
クルス・ノノさんがここにいれば、きっと同じように感じるはずだよ。
Nono
君の
was.
こと。
If Carus was here, I'm sure she'd be feeling the same way about you. I fell silent. There was nothing I could say, but I was truly glad he was the one who read Nono's letter, and he was the one who was helping me. Yeah, at least he's doing his best to be a good cop the whole time. Even if he's sometimes a little bit of a stick in the mud, he's doing his best. He's doing his best. We can appreciate Shinjo. When I reached the Hikariwo, I realized something was wrong. It was too quiet. Normally, even at this hour, the Hikariwo would be fairly noisy, but it was completely silent. No murmurs, no drunken shouting, like I'd heard a moment ago.
始まっちまったか。
It started, huh? Oh. I checked the time. 11:38 dead on. Or 28 dead on. 11:28 dead on, that time. Everyone had gathered in front of the Memorial Park, with the TVs in front of the station for a silent prayer. Shinjo switched the car's navigation system to the TV mode. It was displaying footage of the Memorial Park. Damn, this guy's got a high-end nav system. If the car's navigation system has cable and satellite connections to play TV, does it also do Netflix? Damn, alright, bro. Playing footage of the Memorial Park, alright. Why would we watch this? We're in a hurry. I saw the ceremony and gasped. All the sound was from Shibuya. It was like a movie. It was gone from Shibuya. It was like a movie set. Suddenly I was struck by a terror even greater than before. It felt like the moment of silence was for me as I headed to my death. This guy's really good at setup. I forced myself to smile and tried to tell myself I was shaking from excitement, not fear. My mind was confused, a confused jumble of thoughts. Half of me wanted to go home and half wanted to stay. But I forced myself to keep going. That's right. He's expecting you. I have to know no matter what. Shinjo tossed something at me. What is it? Is this? I felt the sensation of rubber as I grabbed it. I tried to spread out and stop.
皮肉な話だが、手近にこれしかなかった。
Ironically, this is all I've got with me. I hope it's enough.
いえ、ありがとうございます。
This is what, his baton? I lowered my head in thanks. There were still people standing between me and the theater cube.
すまないな。俺はここまでだ。浮君たちをそろそろ。
This is as far as I go. I need to get the others out of the city. He looked at his watch.
わかってます。急いで彼女たちを秋葉へお願いします。
I know. Get them to Akihabara as quick as you can. Thank you.
送り届けたら俺はすぐに戻ってくる。
Once they're safe, I'll come back. Don't die. Again, Akihabara is in the same city. It's, I don't know. How long is that as a car? Like, that's like, what, 30 minutes by car, maybe? I don't know how long it is. It can't be that long, right? Maybe an hour at most? Bad traffic, but it's like nighttime? I have no clue what distances are like in Tokyo. Anyway, right. I wiped my sweaty hands off my pants and nodded. Then I took a deep breath to calm myself down. Alright. Into endgame. Let's go. I put on the sumo sticker mask that Shinjo had given me and stepped out into a Shibuya utterly without sound. The silent prayer was continuing, and this was my chance. Several people looked at me as I got out of the car, but they must have been used to seeing people in masks. They quickly lost interest and lowered their heads once more. Everything was fine. They hadn't figured out who I was. I looked at the Hikariwo station, which towered above me like some kind of fortress. We getting a shot looking up? Nope, we're going inside. The people around me all seemed suspicious, but I made it to the theater floor without anyone saying anything. Then I realized something was wrong and stopped. There was no one on this floor. No customers and not even a single employee. Not even the convenience store, which was open during the festival, was empty. I took off the mask. My field of vision restored, I took another look around the floor. I was right, it was completely empty. There's no sign of Sarika, or Dad either. The whole soundless space in front of me felt like a trap I'd just walked into. I'd taken the mask off, but it still hurt to breathe. I tossed the mask into one of the decorative trees nearby and slowly started to walk across the floor. Every shadow scared me. Each time I reached a blind spot, I'd stare at it a moment before I proceeded. Where was the entrance to the theater? When I found the stairs and escalator, I felt a wave of nostalgia. This is where I had come with the rest of Abadorm. That's right, I'd gone up the stairs and into the theater. I flinched as the escalator started to move. It's an escalator. The fuck are they not perpetually moving? Or did he just turn it on? If he just turned it on... Okay, escalators are always on, right? If he just turned the escalator on, you are in, like, so much shit. Holy crap, you're, like, walking... This guy is, like, perfectly aware of where you are. Damn, alright. Don't scare me like that. It was just a motion detector, I knew that. Escalators don't usually turn off, though, do they? Yeah, alright. The machine seemed to be pulling me deeper into a trap. I looked up to the top of the escalator. There was no one there. Maybe I don't know how escalators work. I smacked my trembling legs with trembling hands and slowly went up the stairs. This was the path that led to the theater, and it was probably leading me to the finale that either Dad or Sarika had planned for me. I was probably doing exactly what one of them wanted. But I had to find Sarika and the answer, and there's no way that desire was in anyone's script. It was my own, I thought. I had to find out the truth, for Nono's sake, as much as my own. I went up to the entrance to the theater and put my hand on the heavy door. I felt the stabbing pain in my head the second I went inside. I staggered and leaned against the back of a nearby chair. What? This can't be. You're already mind-controlled. Nice. I forced myself to endure the pain and look around the theater. The theater was done up in modern style with stadium seating. The stage was at the lowest point in the hall, and the seats got higher the further you went away, so it would be easier for the audience to see. The entrance at the far back, behind the seats. When I looked down, I could see the whole room. The stage was completely empty. No props or backgrounds. The lights were focused on the stage, so the rest of the theater was dark and hard to see. The seats seemed empty, too. Looks like they also got the rear curtains back. Usually stages aren't that deep, right? That looks like a fairly deep stage. So you can see all the way to, like, the back. They usually at least have the back curtain closed, right? The third curtain from the back. Like, they have the black curtain, 3 white curtains. I think the third white curtain would be closed, right? Lights focused on the stage. The rest of the theater is dark and hard to see, and the seats seemed empty too. I couldn't see anyone. I couldn't hear any movement either. My first suspicion was Dad's mind control power, but if his power worked like ours, that meant he would need to share his delusions with me in order to reboot them. In other words, if what I was seeing was due to mind control, Dad must be watching from somewhere nearby. That's right. I suddenly got an idea and looked through my pockets. I found the lollipop Kazuki had given me. I tossed it up and imagined it floating in the air, but instead of floating, it fell into the thin row between the seats.
Yosh.
Good. I sighed with relief, satisfied with what I'd seen. It was impossible for us to use our powers alone. If my psychokinesis wasn't working, it meant there's no one here. I still kept my guard up as I walked towards the stage. He has to push it into someone, doesn't he? Which means if he doesn't know where they are, they can't be targeted. And he can't use his powers, right? If I remembered right, this place hadn't changed since the last time I was here. Come to think of it, if I had come here to celebrate my acceptance to Hekiho Academy, it had only been 2.5 years since I'd last been here. Can't be right. Didn't seem real. It felt like so much more time had passed. Everything had changed. Nono and Yui were gone. Yuto probably left his home and was on his way to Akihabara with Shinja right now. And Dad? Suddenly I heard a sound behind me and spun around. Standing there was... You. She looked just like she had when I'd seen her this morning. Not only was she not hurt, there were no signs she'd even fought. Sarika waited for the door she'd come through to close and slowly walked towards me. Why are you here? It's Sarika! Here we go. We already know she's been mind controlled, so we're in a speck of trouble. But our character doesn't know that. Of course, we called it a webpack. Her voice was quiet but angry. She probably thought I'd left Shibuya.
父さんは
Where's Dad?
死んだよ。
Dead.
え
What?
舞台裏に頭だけ転がっている。半分潰れていて分かりにくいがな。
You'll find his severed head lying on the ground backstage. Has been partially crushed, so it might be hard to tell though. The look on my face must have been ridiculous. Sarika's voice was completely calm, and it's hard to believe she was lying. Dad was dead?
お前が殺したのか
Did you kill him? Renaud silently said, Of course I did.
それで、なぜここにいるんだ？久野里美代たちはどうした？
Why are you here? Where are Mio Kunosato and the others? Okay, I got a good question. Before we even respond, his first thought should be, the fuck am I telling you for? Because if she's lost, if she somehow is uninjured again, and if she lost, she's been mind controlled, and this is the bad guy getting information by like trying to bring it up in your head and then using her mind powers to tell him. Like, it's really bad if you respond in this in any way whatsoever and not just deflect, instantly ask something else. And if she won, why is she asking this question? Because it shouldn't fucking matter. Like, there's no way you should ever answer this. Let's see what happens. How could she be so calm after killing someone? It was terrifying to see how unconcerned she was. My thoughts, feelings, and even my words were a jumbled mess, but I managed to tell her that Shinjo had taken them all out of Shibuya by now. No! Don't tell them that! Fuck, you idiot! You're a fucking idiot, man. Don't say jack shit. I mean, I know she can read your mind, but the answer should be to immediately ask a new question. And pray she didn't see whatever the answer was on the top of your mind, because the minute someone asks you a question you know the answer to, the answer will immediately pop into your head. Oh, this guy's not even started the fight and he's gone full Papaga. Alright. Good job, man. And then I told her why I'd come. Here's all the information you need to find and kill all my friends. Anyway, so why did you come here? Why did you tell me that on the phone? What did I want from you when you were born? Sarika looked at me as if she was staring at something very dear to her. I knew this feeling. Sarika was reading my mind. Suddenly it appeared. Its design was far too complicated and intricate to be called a sword. What do you mean it's too intricate? It was sharp like metal, but had a strange luster that was all its own. It was a D-sword big enough to cover Sarika's entire upper body. It was what she used to kill Nono. You should have escaped with the others, Takuru Miyashiro. Beyond her blade, I could see a slight change in her expression. Onoe? I can't believe this guy is so stupid that he believes someone who got handily defeated would automatically win. And would actually ask you suspicious questions that give away the location of your friends. And not suspect someone. This guy is like... Oh, such a bad protagonist. Be concerned. Mind control is like the most paranoia-inducing ability. And this guy doesn't even concern himself with anyone getting mind controlled around him. When he knows he's going up against a guy who can mind control people. Come on, man. It was the same look I'd seen before when she was talking about Dad, as if she hated everything she saw. Just as she jumped, I felt a burning heat in my right shoulder and fell to the ground. A moment later, I felt pain like nothing I'd ever experienced before. You deserve this, Takuru. I don't even feel bad. I grabbed my shoulder with my left hand and felt something nasty, warm and sticky. It was blood. Oh no, he's been cut. Surprise, surprise. Alright. I'd been cut. If I'd reacted a moment later, she would have chopped my entire shoulder off. I looked up. Sarika was already bringing her blade down. I forced myself to twist out of the way, ignoring the blood spurting from my shoulder. Again. This time, pain was in my left leg. I ignored it too, trying my best to get away. I can't believe he's this stupid, seriously. You're fighting someone with mind control? You want to go ask someone who's fighting someone with mind control questions. You arrive late to the fight, and they're like, yeah, I won, he's dead, off screen. Okay. He can implant things in people's heads that make them do shit. Gods. Alright. I ignored it, trying my best to get away. If we die here, it's gonna be really funny, but I don't think we're dead, right? Sarika walked over to me slowly. I must have bit something in my mouth when I rolled, because I tasted something bitter and metallic. What?
手遅れだった。私が委員会を甘く見ていた。
I was too late. I underestimated the committee. Sarika stopped close enough to strike me with her D-sword and began to speak.
佐久間に代わる人間がもう私に接触してきた。すでに逃げ場はない。
Someone involved with Sakuma already made contact with me. There's nowhere left to run.
お前を生かし続けることはできない。
I can't keep you alive.
お前をこれまでの事件の被害者のようにはさせたくないんだ。
I don't want you to end up like the other victims. No way. That's why she's gonna kill me? Just like she killed Nono with that D-sword? Her logic is fucking terrible. Yeah. We're dying. The pain from the cuts kept me from thinking, and the blood loss drained away my will to resist. I couldn't feel my left leg anymore, but I couldn't stop looking at Sarika. I wasn't sure. Were there any important blood vessels around the calves?
私もすぐに行く。向こうで話そう。
I'll be dead soon too. We can talk on the other side. Sarika swung the D-sword at me. This guy doesn't even bother defending himself again. And then I felt something burst in me. Oh, no, I want him to die. It'd be funny. I leapt at Sarika. I reached out my hand without thinking and felt something warm and rough. I heard her scream in my ears. By the time I'd realized I'd reached into the cut in her stomach and ripped out the stitches, I was already on top of her. Her D-sword had disappeared. My hand went for her neck. You can't like... Alright, he's a telekinetic. I believe it. Again, is this going to work? If you don't use your telekinesis, this is going to be really hard. She'll just pass out. My fingers dug into her flesh. The only thing I saw was the red color dripping down the base of her neck. Was it my blood from when she'd cut my shoulder, or hers when I'd ripped open her stomach? Or had been my nails broken on the skin on her neck? Whatever it was red and it was spreading. Alright. I couldn't stop myself from gripping tighter. My fingers dug deeper and deeper, and the soft sensation of her skin began to recede. Instead, I felt thick muscle and hard bone. Alright, that's some deep breathing, buddy. When it was over, the pain in my leg and shoulder was gone. It was still there, but it didn't feel like my own pain. It was like I was watching myself on top of Sarika from a distance. But when I took my hands off her neck, the feeling disappeared and everything else came flooding back. Sarika's eyes had rolled up into her head and her tongue was sticking out of her mouth. It was an unpleasant wetness, and I felt an unpleasant wetness in my underwear. It was her blood pouring from where it sat on her. The blood was pouring from the gash in her stomach. Sarika wasn't moving anymore. Did I kill her? Or did I strangle her to death? Oh, that's a thing. Alright. I suddenly felt the urge to vomit. Is she breathing? Why? What was I doing on top of Sarika? Why were my hands covered in blood? My head hurt, my field of vision was red, my heart was pounding hard, and under me was the body of the girl I'd created. Please verify if Dad is dead behind the curtains, or if, like, it's complete bullshit. I know it might be he might actually be behind there waiting, but, like, please verify. Or like, check your telekinesis, do something, man. I cradled my head in my bloody hands. It hurt so much it felt like it was going to burst. My eyes hurt too. Everything was turning red. Alright. Huh? Suddenly my vision cleared. The lights above the stage seemed impossibly bright, like a sun at the end of the tunnel. Ow. There was a pain in my eyes. I reached up my hand and my fingers were covered in pink tears. And then I realized Sarika wasn't here. My fingers weren't covered in blood. I twisted my neck to look at my shoulder. My clothes weren't even cut. There wasn't a single wound on my leg either. What was going on? I was sitting on the ground alone, but the seats near the entrance. You're an asshole, you know? I never raised you to be like that. Hey, look. The guy's fine. I leapt up to my feet. See? Hey, look. Who called mind control? Literally, like, the first minute. The minute he gets those headaches, it's like he's being mind controlled, right? Alright. Dad was on stage. He was standing in center like the lead singer at a musical, and at his feet wasn't it? Sarika, the girl I thought I just killed, was lying at his feet. There was no blood on her clothes, and the cut on her stomach hadn't been torn open, but she must have been unconscious because she wasn't moving.
こいつは妄想の前に殺されそうになっても一切抵抗しなかったぞ。いじらしいじゃないか。
Even when you just about killed her in her delusions, she didn't resist at all. Ain't that cute? I suddenly understood what was going on. Mind control. It took him literally until he, like, killed someone to be like, oh yeah, the guy has mind control powers. That's weird. Why didn't I think of that? But when? Was I under the effects when I came into the theater? Yes. When I came inside, I felt a sharp pain and my vision blurred. That is literally the second you got mind controlled. It's so obvious. When I tested my powers under the lollipop, I was already under his spell. The pain and heat was so real, but it was an illusion. I could still feel the sensation of wringing Sarika's neck.
あのままこの子に殺されてりゃ、お前のここも壊れてたはずなんだがな。
If you'd just let her kill you, it would have broken you here too. Dad tapped his own heart.
逆に殺しちまうってのはどうだよ、タクル。女に手を挙げる男はモテねえぞ。
But instead, you chose to kill her? What's up with that, Takuru? Girls don't like boys who get violent. Hearing Dad talk in the same tone he always did was almost enough to get me to let my guard down. I mean, so here's a good problem. So how do you know if this isn't also an illusion created by him? He's projecting an illusion of himself into your mind. This is why you always have countermeasures for mind control. So, is Dad actually here? Does it even matter? Like, let's say you imagine you killed him. Do you know you killed him? No, you don't. Is he even there? Fucked if you know. Because he's already got mind. If he's actually letting his powers down to flex on you, then he knows he can put them up and beat you anyway. So you've already lost. Like, you have to not get mind controlled at step 1. And you didn't, like, do anything to shrug off the illusion. He kind of just let it go on you, so you kind of, like, just lose this fight no matter what, right? Alright. Hearing him talking the same tone he always did, it was almost enough to make you lay your guard. Your guard's been down a long time, man. This wasn't the man I knew. The man on stage wasn't the Dad I knew. What's that machine?
あの機械
I took a good look at it. Dad was holding a backpack and I could see some kind of device
何
inside.
を背負ってるんだ
What's he carrying? A recording device? Dad was wearing a piece of headgear that connected to it. A long cylindrical machine he was holding was connected to it by a cord. So that's it.
そうか
If he had psychic powers like we did, then he had to have one too. That was Dad's D sword. Okay, this looks like a fantasy greatsword. There's like 20 swords it's shaped after. Alright. Why did he have it though? I thought those powers only appeared in brains that were developing during the earthquake. He was literally researching it. The fuck if I know why he has them. He'd probably implant them on himself.
これまでの研究によれば脳がまだ発達段階で活発に活動している若い人間
He might be a faker, who
そ
knows?
の中でも
They were researching it, they could probably fabricate them. I mean, he's wearing a backpack, right?
能力の発現が見られる
The backpack might be like the power source for his psychic abilities. And they might be able to give themselves any ability they want by like wearing the right setup and fabricating the right D sword. Our research has shown that this only occurs in the young whose brains are developing, particularly those experience something, put them in states of extreme stress. So either it's equipment or he's a classic Gigalomaniac, not like the new ones, right? Because the new ones, the ones from the Flash, are the only ones who got these powers and only got limited powers. Everyone else they researched, they said, had the full power suite. It might be a kid's brain. That seems unnecessary. He could just actually be a Gigalomaniac or could be a subject into he could have like tested creating artificial Gigalomaniacs. That could have been their line of research and he could have been one of them. It seems unnecessary to do anything like super edgy with the backpack. It's pretty easy just to be like, yeah, he's got those powers because he was researching that shit and like built them into himself or some shit. Or the backpack is just like a power source for it. Could be anything. Alright. So let's see. Because they can't research Gigalomaniacs if they don't already exist, so clearly there had to be ones before this. That's what Kunosato said.
ああこれか
Oh, this? Dad saw what I was looking at and tapped his backpack with the D sword.
すげえだろ俺たちの研究成果の一つさ俺みたいな普通の人間でもギガロマニアックスと似たような能力が持てる
Amazing, huh? One of the results of our research lets normal people like me have powers similar to a Gigalomaniac.
こいつはある装置の端末でなその装置ってのは以前ここにあったんだがちょっとトラブっちまっておかげであの地震だひでえ目にあった
This was a terminal for a certain machine. The machine used to be here, but it ran into some trouble, and that's what caused the earthquake. Bad times, huh? Dad sounded like a child whose favorite toy had been broken. It was clear he didn't care about the people who died or whose lives had been ruined during the earthquake.
そのせいで俺らもリストラされちまうしよ金もね人もいねえで組み立て直すのに6年もかかっちまった
Cause that, I lost my job. No money, no employees. It took me 6 years to put it back together.
委員会のバカども
Those idiots in the committee. That was how he'd been able to do that to Ito? And now, how he'd been able to kill Yui? I felt a mix of rage, sorrow, and hate. All the feelings were so strong I wanted to scream.
はいお前のことを何とかすりゃまた研究に戻れるからな
Well, it doesn't matter. Once I deal with you, I can go back to my research. The good news is, if you can somehow resist mind control, you have like one of the best powers for fighting people, because, you know, telekinesis can crush his backpack, can make you fly, it can do a lot of crazy shit, buddy. So, maybe if all you need to do is take his helmet off, just flick the helmet off with telekinesis and call it psychokinesis. He has to put it on, you throw your sword at him and kill him. That would work. Actually, just conjuring it and throwing it might work. People are pretty bad at people are pretty bad at parrying shit like that, and you can conjure it infinitely, right? Just conjure it and throw it. Like, you don't need to be good with weapons. He just needs to be not amazing at baseball. His especially because you're telekinetic and can accelerate shit, or slow it down while it's moving. Though I don't know if he tested throwing shit with telekinesis. Let's see. We having an actual fight, though? An actual fight after he drops his mind control on you would be really wonky. It was as if he was picking just the right words to make me even angrier.
正直ちょっと焦ったぜ。あの絵のやつ一人でここへ来やがったからよ。お前が来なきゃ話にならねえし、めんどくせえことになったと思ってたんだが。
To be honest, I was a little worried. Onoe came here on her own. I needed you, not her, so I thought I had a problem on my hands. He looked down at her and poked her with the artificial D-sword. She still didn't move. It couldn't be. Was Sarika?
Hmm? 死んでるぞ。
Oh, she's dead, obviously. Funny, ain't it? You seem to say.
思考誘導をかけられて妄想の中で戦わされてるって気づいたんだな、こいつ。最後、ディソードを引っ込めて、お前に殺される瞬間まで抵抗一つしなかった。
Even when I put her under mind control and had her fight you in her delusions, she put her D-sword away and didn't resist right up until the moment you killed her.
どこまでお前のことが大事なんだか。
Amazing how much she cared about you. Press X to doubt. Anyway. He kicked her hard enough that she turned over.
やめろ。
それにしてもお前すご
You
か
though,
った
you're
な。
amazing. Consumed with rage over losing Nono. I just gave it a little boost and you killed her without mercy.
そしたら情けも容赦もなくぶっ殺したもんな。お前もどこまでノノが大事なんだか。
It's amazing how much you cared about Nono too. I could feel my whole body getting hot. Stop it. Don't say Nono's name. Not with that face. Not that voice.
何考えてんだよ。
He's probably thinking it was pretty fun, since that's what Sarika said, and I don't really see a reason to reject his personality. Her statements about his personality. There wasn't really any reason to share that in the first place. Huh? The way Dad's expression didn't change at all only made me madder. Did he really not understand? We'd all lived together for years, right? We'd come together as a family, hadn't we?
ユウトとウキはいなくなったあんたのことを心配してる。
Yuto and Uki are worried about you.
お、なんだお前まだあいつらに言ってなかったのかよ。
ユイだってずっとあんたを信頼してた。
You always trusted you. No. Yeah.
きっかけはタクルのリハビリの手伝いをしていた時に父さんに言われた言葉。
It started with what you said when I was helping Takuru with his physical
なか
therapy.
なかだぞという一言でした。
Doing a great job for someone who hasn't gone to school. I'm impressed.
きっと父親というのはそういうものなんでしょう。父さんが作った家のルール、私は好きでした。
I'm sure that's just the way a father is. I love the rules you made for our family. Thanks.
くれぐれも飲みすぎには注意してください。
Please don't drink too much.
信じてたんだ。大切な家族だって。なのに何考えてんだよ。
She believed you. She thought you were part of our family. What are you thinking? My words echoed off the walls of the theater and came back to me again and again. And then I realized I was the same way. I believed in him too from the bottom of my heart. But he... Dad chuckled and scratched his head like I'd seen him do many times before. It was the same thing he'd done when Nono was scolding him at
だ
home.
からよ、お前なんか楽しいことってあるか？
Takuru, do you have anything you enjoy doing?
は？
なんかあんだろう、面白いと思うこと。それがなきゃ人間なんてやってらんねえだろうが。
You gotta have something you like, right? There's no point in living otherwise. What's he talking about? This wasn't I asked. This isn't what I
なん
asked.
でユイを殺した？ノノを殺した？
Why'd you kill Yui? Why'd you kill Nono? あ？
ユイをやったのはお前の友達だし、ノノをやったのはこいつだろうがよ。
Oh, your friend killed Yui and this girl killed Nono.
うるさい。
Shut up.
おお、怖え。
Ooh, scary. Scary. The hell's so funny? I clenched my hands into fists, my grip so tight, my rage that my nails dug into my skin.
あんたどうして どうしてこんなことできるんだ。おかしいだろ。
Well, you see, some people have different ambitions. And little restraint. Alright. How are you capable of doing this? It doesn't make sense. Well,
何怒るなって。
don't get so mad. I told you,
今
you
言
need
った
to
ろ
have fun.
楽しまなきゃダメだ。
The hell does that mean, though?
俺はな、お前に期待してたんだよ。人間一人リアルブートしちまうくらいぶっ壊れてたからな。
I had great expectations for you. You were so broken, you were capable of real booting a complete human being.
どこまでいけるか、どこまで狂えるか、楽しみにしてた。
I was looking forward to seeing how far you could go, how crazy you could become. What?
お前みてえなギガロマニアックスが好きなことを好きなだけやるようになったら本当にすげえんだぜ。この世界すらめちゃくちゃにできちまう。
If a Gigalomaniac like you started doing whatever they wanted, whenever he wanted, it would be amazing. You could wreck the whole world.
面白い。たまんねえ。それを観測して計算して理論を組んでまた実験してそのループの先にどんなもんが現れるのか俺は見てみてえな。ワクワクしねえか、タクル。
It'd be hilarious. I couldn't wait to see it, so I observed, calculated, theorized, did more experiments. I can't wait to see what lies at the end of the loop. Isn't it exciting to occur? Well, if that's your original power, time to use it again. And create someone with mind control powers. That would actually be a good counter. Be like, you have to have mind control powers or you don't exist. And you have to mind control this guy. Make it like their sole purpose existence to be to like overwhelm him with mind control and make like 6 people. Come on, man. Or maybe since you have 2 powers, you can use all the powers you want. Who knows? Dad kept using the same voice he always used at home. I wasn't hearing a word. The anger inside me just kept building.
とにかくよ、どんな時でも自分が面白いと思うことに従っとけ。これは父親代わりの人生訓ってやつだ。
What I'm saying is, no matter what happens, do what you think is fun. Think of it as a life lesson from your dad.
父親だと。あんたなんか父親じゃない。
Dad, you're not my dad! I screamed, but Dad kept smiling.
とにかくな、俺にとっちゃギガロマニアックス研究は最高だ。こんなに楽しいこと他に存在しねえ。
To me, Gigalomaniac research is the most fun thing in the world. There's nothing else that's so entertaining.
これがお前の質問への答えだ。
That's your answer.
そんな。
Can't be. That was the only reason? The only reason he worked for the committee? The only reason he'd done horrible experiments in the basement?
ユイやノノや伊藤たちをあんな目に合わせたの。
The reason you did that to Yui, Nono, Ito, and all the others? Yeah, I don't know why we needed this.
何回言ったらわかんだよ。
I'm fine with this. It's like always the classic villain dialogue. How many times do I have to tell you?
面白いだろ。
It was fun! Oh, we got a new track starting in the background. Yeah! Alright. The next thing I knew, I was running. The D-sword appeared in my hand instantly. Ooh, it's pink! It had no weight, but I could feel it was there. It's usually blue! I listened to the blades roar as I ran down the corridor. And swung it upward at the bastard on the stage. There was a high-pitched noise and a brilliant light, and I stopped. My hand went numb for a second. The mechanical D-sword had blocked my swing. He went for the melee. Bad play. This guy knows swordplay, for sure. If he spent his whole life practicing and abusing his powers, surely he knows how to... Yeah, here. Dad's muscles bulged like thick ropes as he swung his giant D-sword down at me. We also don't know how many powers he's wielded. He might be able to wield like 10 powers with this, but he hasn't needed more than one, so let's not assume that. I barely managed to block it, but the row knocked me back into the front row seats. Or at least it didn't say like 5th row seats or something crazy like that. Alright. There was a sharp pain in my arm. It had been cut a little. It was a delusion before, but this time real blood was running down my arm. Real blood? How do we know it's real blood? Anyway, the delusions are as real as real life.
おいおい、
Wait.
お前の腕力で俺とチャンバラする気か？
Yeah. Are you thinking about getting in a fight with me with your strength? Like, why are you using your sword when you have telekinesis and can just crush the headset and be like, suck a dick? Or the backpack? Come on, man. Like, he doesn't even try to win the way he can win. I want to give Shiro credit for when he tries to fight, fighting the only way he knows how to fight, what might actually get him somewhere. We'll give him credit for that. He learns how to fight and fights the way other people are fighting because it's the way he might get, and he learns the way he thinks he might get good fastest, rather than this. I don't even know what this is. If your power is telekinesis, you actually have an offensive and defensive power here. It should be like crush his head, see what happens. Come on, man. Or like throw telekinetic punches. And then obviously, Danganronpa protagonist doesn't have any superpowers and doesn't try to use superpowers, so I don't have a problem. Alright, strength on strength, not the best idea. Let's see how this goes. Dad didn't move a step. He raised the giant D sword onto his shoulders. So he's got, well, it's massless, so the size doesn't matter. It's mostly just reach if it's massless, right? His huge body was at least 185 centimeters tall, and he towered over me from the stage like a wall.
たまには息子と遊んでやるか。娘ばっかり相手にしてちゃかわいそうだしな。
I guess I can play with my son once in a while. It's not fair to give the girls all the attention.
ほら、こっちに来いよ。観客がしたい一つってのは物足りないけどな。
Come on up. I wish we had more than a single corpse for an audience, but what can you do, huh? Then he kicks Sarika's unmoving body once more. I felt anger, but also an indescribable despair. What was I doing here? I came to find the truth from Sarika, but I'd killed her myself. There was no reason for me to be here anymore. Didn't that mean there was no reason to try and fight Dad? It wouldn't even be a fight. I'd probably just get myself killed, so maybe a moment of clarity in the action. When Sarika had cut open my leg before, it had only been an illusion. I could run to the exit. If I caught him off guard, I could escape, maybe, but he just mind controls you so you never leave, dude. You can't just assume you're gonna run. He's gonna just like lull and mind control you. I went forward. I hadn't done any real exercise since my physical therapy 6 years ago. A vision of Nono and Yui flashed through my mind, and for some reason I saw Sarika smiling like she used to when we were in the newspaper club.
どうした？早く舞台に上がれ。客が退屈してるぞ。
What's wrong? Come on up on stage. The audience is getting bored. I mean, if you should have known going here would lead to this. Come on, man. When I looked at him, I suddenly had an idea in the corner of my mind. I remembered what he'd said. The machine on his back was what gave him his power. He was an artificial Gigalomaniac. What if I could get rid of the machine? I might be able to do it. I have to do it. Oh, praise the sun. He's thinking with the because he's not the dumbest person. I'm gonna be honest. This guy's ability to investigate is actually pretty good. He's fairly smart when he's analyzing things. It's when he's actually doing anything that he's a complete idiot. And for once, he's actually thinking. Congratulations, man. You didn't have a panic attack or a mental breakdown. Well, I mean, he had one. He had one, but it wasn't. His dad kind of just let him off easy and didn't kill him because he's looking for a good fight. Or a more anguishing battle. More agonizing battle. I stood and climbed up onto the stage. The lights shone down on my head. I could hear a non-existent crowd screaming for my death from the empty seats. I readied the D-sword. My hand still felt a little numb.
Oh, 主役っぽいぞ、タクル。
Hey, looking like a hero, Takuru. Good stuff. You know, I can also see like a single cable connecting that headpiece. If he severed that cable, I wonder what happened, because I don't see any cables going to his sword. If you severed that cable, would he like instantly lose the sword? Now, I don't think he can sever stuff telekinetically. He seems to just be able to apply like moderate amounts of force. But I mean, he has like a chest strap, some things. Depending on his precision, he could undo the backpack pretty quickly. Looking like a hero, good stuff. Alright, let's fight. I take a step to the side, trying to look as natural as possible. If he's gonna use the sea sword. This is like a long weapon. I wonder if it's unwieldy. He might use two hands for it. It probably makes sense to use two hands with most swords, right? As long as you can fit your hands on the fucking... Like, obviously he's not wearing any he's not wearing, like, gauntlets or anything to protect his hands, so he probably wants to wear... Probably don't want to, like, rip the blade or anything, but... You can probably get both hands on the handle of that. Oh, probably... By moving to the side, I was able to see part of the device on his back. I hit it with my power as hard as I could. Ugh. Dad heard a noise behind him and turned around. I had a clear view of the machine. I concentrated harder and hit him with more of my power. Asshole. It's slightly unstable. We tried to break it and failed. Dad howled like a wild animal and swung his D-sword, but I didn't stop. As long as I can destroy the machine. Bloop. Huh? And mind control. My vision suddenly blurred. I felt the cold wind on my cheek and I could see the city in the distance. Where was I? On top of the school? Damn it. Yeah, you got mind control pretty quickly. More mind control. I panicked and tried to use my D-sword. It was gone. The D-sword disappeared. What the hell? Damn it. I concentrated as best as I could. I imagined the pale light of the sword. Come on, come on, come on, come on. I couldn't see him or sense him. But Dad was probably right in front of me with his huge D-sword. I couldn't make my D-sword appear. I couldn't see it. I couldn't find it. It was always supposed to appear when I imagined it. What did you want to talk about? Sarika was standing there on the roof, and so was... Don't try and fool me. With your power, you know exactly what I want to talk about, right, Sarika? Oh, this is gonna be fun. Is he gonna make us relive this experience until we wake up? Until we manage to break out? I think that'd be funny. I think he might think that's fun. He's like, okay, let's see you break out of mind control. You want to use telekinesis? Here you go. Boop. Mind control. Have fun. We'll like make you relive your, like, one of your nightmares over and over again. That'd be cool. It was Nono. Nono was standing in front of me talking. No, Nono's alive. Nono is. Oh, that's not right. My sense of logic dispelled the hope that was forming in my mind. This was mind control. Dad's powers causing me to hallucinate. The two of them were right in front of me, but didn't seem to know I was there. So you knew, Nono? Yeah? Suddenly, Sarika changed. The smiling, happy girl from the newspaper club disappeared. He became a cold, remorseless killer. Stop it, oh no. I knew I was being mind controlled, but I couldn't help myself. I felt a cold chill in my heart and all the hairs on my body stood on end. Then you must know what's coming next, right? Sarika's D-sword appeared in her hand. Nono didn't seem surprised. She just glared at Sarika. Stop. Sarika. Are you gonna kill Takuru too? I'll keep him alive, that's why. A dubious claim, to be sure, but alright. I don't believe you. That's why I'm gonna stop you, even if it kills me. Thought you'd say that. That's why you're in the way. To be fair, none of Sarika's choices make a lot of sense.
やめろ!
Oh, don't! I screamed as Sarika stepped forward, but there was no sign she heard me. I tried to summon my D-sword, but it didn't work. I tried to get between the two of them. And I realized I couldn't move. My legs were felt like they were frozen to the ground. Why? Why? But my head was clear. I couldn't let this happen. I knew I had to stop it, but... Sarika and Nono's D-swords slammed into each other. There was a flash so bright I was forced to close my eyes. And Nono's D-sword cracked.
見込み違いだったな。お前の思考は丸見えだ。
Oh, the sword cracked. Interesting. You made a mistake. I can see exactly what you're thinking.
まだ私に友情を期待しているとはな。
I can't believe you still thought I was your friend. Sarika kept going forward. Seriously, like if you're going up to confront the killer on the roof and they're a mind control person, please just stab them in the back. Be like, yeah, they're a mind controller. Who cares? Like, you're not going to win against a telepath like this most of the time. Unless you're fighting with another telepath. Anyway, no hesitation on her face.
やめろ! やめろ!
Don't! No matter how much I screamed, they didn't hear me. I couldn't move. Sarika crossed right in front of me, carrying her gigantic, deadly weapon.
私の中に友情など存在しない。
There's no friendship within me. We're replaying this scene, and in the next moment...
タクル、ごめんね。
Takaru, I'm sorry. It felt like Nono looked at me. And then, Sarika's D-sword ran her through. Please, reset and, make him see it again. That'd be good. And suddenly I was seeing something else. I felt the cold wind in my cheek and I could see the city in the distance. I could hear a sob. I'd been crying without realizing it. I looked around, forgetting to even wipe the tears from my cheeks. The roof was lit by the moon. There was nothing there, no one here. Of course, there was no sign of Sarika or Nono's body. Then, what was that? Calm down. Calm down. It was all mind control. It's just a hallucination. It's a fake vision my dad created. That's right, just like a movie. It had to be. Nono died at Sarika's hand. Sarika had killed Nono. It really happened. I'd seen it, but it wasn't happening now. It was all part of the past. There's no changing it.
のんちゃん、話って。
Oh, here we go. What did you want to talk about, Non?
白々しいわね。あなたなら聞かなくても。
We just read this dialogue. Don't try and fool me. With your power, you know exactly what I want to talk about, right, Sarika? Sarika? Again, the two of them were standing there just as they were before.
分かっていたんだな、クルスノノ。
So you knew, Nono.
ええ。
Yeah.
なら、こうなることも分かっていただろう。
Then you know what's coming next, right?
タクルのことも。
Are you gonna kill
殺
Takuru
すつ
too?
もり。
それはない。あいつのことは私が生かし続ける。
No, I'll keep him
それ
alive.
が
That's
私
why
の
I
存在。
insist.
信
Alright.
じられないわ。
I don't believe you. That's why I'm gonna
だから
stop you,
私は
even if it kills me.
あなたを止める。この命。
そう言うと思った。
Thought you'd say that.
だ
That's
か
why
ら
you're
お
in the
前
way.
は邪魔なんだ。
The two of them played out the exact same scene as before. There was no sign they'd noticed me. This is great. So he just gets to spend ages making you relive this. I did call this the minute we went into this. I was like, you're gonna have to relive this until you break out, right? Alright. My heart began to pound loudly again. I remembered how it felt to hold Nono's body in my hands. The smell of her blood, the way the warmth drained from her body. The way her eyes would never look at me again. Calm down, I tried to tell myself again and again. This is part of the past. Screaming won't change it. Our character is really bad at doing anything other than panicking, so this is kind of funny. Like, every time he sees it, he panics again. Maybe this wasn't even part of the past. I hadn't heard this conversation. Nothing except the fact Sarika had killed Nono might be a hallucination that might be hallucination my dad created. Oh, and you're out of it. I tried to run away, growing ever more frustrated at my unmoving legs. But nothing worked. That's right, the real me wasn't even here. I was on top of stage, trapped in a hallucination with Dad and his gigantic D-sword standing right in front of me.
見込み違いだったな。お前の思考は丸見えだ。
You made a mistake. I can see exactly what you're thinking.
まだ私に友情を期待しているとはな。
I can't believe you still thought I was your friend. I couldn't believe it either when Nono went to confront the killer on the roof alone and got murdered, and I was like, no, you kind of deserve this. That was really stupid. Sarika raised her D-sword and advanced. Oh, we're back to being traumatized. It was coming back. I never wanted to go through it again, but it was coming back. I looked away. I tried to look away, but my head wouldn't move. I couldn't take my eyes off it. Nono looked at me.
タクル、どうしてそこにいるの？
Hakuru, what are you doing here? What? Sarika killed Nono again. It repeats again. Welcome back, Takuru. This is some nice exposure therapy. Eventually, our protagonist will need to learn to recover from seeing something mildly traumatic, at least within like 30 seconds. He needs to get over this thing. It's like a huge problem. He keeps looking into traumatic things and having these annoying panic attacks. Maybe after the 500th loop he'll recover. Let's see. I found myself at the beginning once more. On a cold, moonlit roof, I wrapped my arms around my body tightly, trying to warm myself against the freezing air. What was that? Nono had looked at me. I'd seen her looking at me. I was sure of it. She'd seen me? Impossible. I wasn't really there. But that was Nono's voice I heard. She'd been looking at me. If I was a real Gigalomaniac, did that mean I had the power to change the past? If that was true, was that the real Carusa and not a hallucination? Calm down. My head hurt. I was losing the ability to think. This was an illusion. It's all an illusion. There's no way I could change the past.
のんちゃん、話って。
Well, try to change it anyway. You got no choice. You either try to move your legs, or you try to change the past. Make up your mind, Takuru.
白々しいわね。あなたなら聞かなくてもわかるんでしょ、セリカ。
Don't try and fool me with your power. You know exactly what I want to talk about, right, Sarika? Say something. See if saying something will change it. Be like, she's gonna stab at you. Like, I mean, that's like a generic warning, right? Look out for the stab. Generic warning. Something someone might say, even if they're being traumatized, they're like, don't get stabbed. Or like, it's a thrust or something. Come on, man. I'd like him to react, but I know he's like super panicky protagonist, so he's not going to react all that much. Alright, let's see how loop 3 goes. Fade to black, alright. On my third time seeing the same thing, I finally closed my eyes. Stop it. I don't want to see Nono die anymore. I put my hands over my ears to block out the sound. But I could hear them speaking the same words. The last conversation Nono would ever have flowed directly into my head.
見込み違いだったな。お前の思考は丸見えだ。まだ私に友情を期待しているとはな。
I can't believe you thought I was your friend.
私の中に
There's no friendship in me. I didn't have to look to know what was happening. I knew the expressions on their faces. I knew the looks in their eyes. The angle Sarika held her sword at, and even how she was going to swing it. I knew it all.
タクル、どうして助けてくれないの？
Takuru, why would you save me? I felt warm blood on my face the second I closed my eyes. There was no time to scream. I kept my eyes closed tight, but I could feel the wind on my cheeks again. I was stuck frozen on that roof again. The muscles in my face had tensed up. There was nothing funny happening, but I was letting out a noise that sounded like laughter. My teeth were chattering.
何？のんちゃん、話って。
What did you want to talk about? No?
白々しいわ
Don't try to
ね。
fool me. You know that. I'm not going to repeat this dialogue. It's the dialogue between Nono and Sarika. I covered my ears, but their words went right into my brain. I didn't know how I could possibly be any more confused. What was that? Why was Nono in front of me?
なぜ 答えてくれないの？
Why won't you say? Why won't you answer me? Ah! He's having a panic attack. I didn't want to open my eyes. I wanted to keep them shut, but for some reason, the moment Nono was killed, they opened on their own. Nono kept dying in front of me. Nono had taken care of me and kept me safe before I'd even woken up from my coma, from my perspective. That was before I'd even known her. She was part of my family. She was the only big sister I had, and she kept dying over and over and over.
私が死ななければなら
Why
ない
do
の？
I have to die? My head hurt, but the pain didn't even work as an anchor to keep my mind connected to reality. Nono was a hallucination, I knew that, but the words she said were ripping apart my mind.
なぜユイを助けてくれなかったの？
Why didn't you save Yui?
なぜ事件を追いかけたりしたの？
Why did you try to solve the case at all? Nono looked at me and kept asking, were those her last words before she was killed? Her dying screams, her final message? No more. I don't want to see her die anymore. Please stop it. My eyes were closed, but I couldn't see her. I could see her death repeating again and again in my mind. The D sword running through her chest, blood everywhere, a tiny sound coming out of her throat, like air leaking from a bag. Her blood was hot when it landed on my face. It didn't have the metallic smell, but it was hot. I couldn't tell anymore. Was this really a hallucination? Also, not using your actual powers. I guess Nono doesn't have any practice with it. I was gonna say, using your powers would have been really useful there, Nono, in a life and death battle, but maybe it's something that's not very effective. Maybe this was the real Nono. Maybe this is what she really thought. Why didn't you save me? Why didn't you save Yui? Why did you try to solve the case at all? I told you not to do anything dangerous. I told you not to get revenge. Okay, I was expecting a panic scream, not a crying, but not like a quiet crying.
せいだ。
It's my fault. It's your fault. There we go. That's what I was looking for. I heard a sound somewhere. It was the sound of something snapping. I didn't want to see anymore. I didn't want to hear anymore. I didn't want to feel anymore. I closed off my mind, wanting nothing more than
お
that.
いおい、そこで殻に閉じこもるなよ。罪の意識だけで立ち止まるお前なんざ、もう見飽きてんだ。
Oh, don't go into your shell now. I'm sick and tired of seeing you stop moving because of guilt. I heard a voice from somewhere speaking directly into my head. But I held my hands over my ears anyway. I didn't want to hear anything.
しょうがねえな。なら、立ち止まれないようにするしかねえか。
Fine, I'll have to make it so you can't stop then.
ウッドバーンヘロンは知ってるか？じゃあ、また1ヶ月後にな。楽しく壊れろよ。
Ever heard of Woodburn Heron? Anyway, see you in a month. Have fun breaking. And like a computer monitor being powered off, everything disappeared. What? What was this? It was dark. I couldn't see anything. I was in a huge, dark, empty space, like nothing I'd ever experienced. I couldn't tell if my eyes were open or not. I tried blinking, but the darkness didn't change. I tried to rub my eyes to see if that helped, but my hands wouldn't move. Not just my hands, nothing moved. What? No sensation of standing, no feeling of weight in my body. Was I lying down? Was I floating? It was like being in 0G or floating in water with no resistance. Like my body was drifting along and the only thing that existed was the quiet. I could hear the sound of my heart echoing. But even in the overwhelming darkness, I felt a little better. Anything was better than seeing Nono die again and again and again. It didn't matter what. Compared to hearing Nono's last words over and over. I did nothing but float here. It was like being almost asleep, but there was something stopping me from falling asleep altogether. It felt weird and unpleasant. I tried to at least do something about the floating, but there was nothing to grab onto, nowhere to stand, and my body wouldn't move. I wanted something solid. I tried my best to find it. Suddenly I realized, where am I? What am I doing here? No. This is more mind control. The darkness is another hallucination. I tried to scream and wave my arms. There's no sound and no movement. I couldn't move. I at least wanted to feel something with one of my senses. It could be a bright light, screaming, even pain. An awful, bitter taste, or even a horrible smell. If I didn't find something fast, I'd lose track of where I ended and the darkness began. I know. What of my shoulder injury from when my dad knocked me into the seats? I tried to feel the pain in my shoulder, but it didn't work. I couldn't feel anything, even whether or not it was bleeding. It felt like the darkness was gradually burying me, like ants swarming on a piece of candy. The boundary line between my own body and the rest of the world got even blurrier. No way. I finally remembered a certain piece of information. I remembered what my dad said just before this happened. Woodburn Heron, was it? I matched the name with what was going on. That's right, it was a famous experiment, if I remembered right. Heron's sensory deprivation experiment. He'd put subjects in a sound-treated room that was completely silent, then blindfold them so they couldn't see and tie them with a straitjacket kept at exactly their body temperature to take away their sense of touch. Except for eating simple meals and defecating, they were kept on a bed at all times. The experiment he'd done was to see how long they could last. The results had been far less than what he'd expected. The most any of them could endure was 2 to 3 days. The worst ones would complain of disturbed thinking after a few hours. If they continued with the experiment anyway, they would start hearing and seeing things almost go mad. A human being can't endure long periods of time with no stress or stimulation. The experiment was banned because of its dangerousness. I remembered something else, something terrifying. What was it my dad had said? See you in a month? I was supposed to spend a month like this? I screamed, but I couldn't hear my voice. The first change was to my sense of vision. It was after about 2 days passed by my reckoning. It would have to have been about dinner time. I wasn't sleepy or hungry, but at some point I just began to count numbers. 1 second, 2 seconds. It was meaningless, but I felt like I'd go mad if I didn't do something. When I'd just passed 100,000 seconds, the darkness in front of me suddenly began to shine. What? Who's there? It wasn't a camera flash or a light bulb, it was a blurry glow. That was all. I couldn't see anything else or even move. When I saw it, I lost track of my number and started over. The light came every 100,000 seconds. A day was 60 times 60. 60 times 60 times 24, so it was 86,400 seconds. Perfect. I decided to round up and call each 100,000 seconds a day. There was no light. I was bored. I wished so many times for something to happen. Someone come here. Even Dad. I didn't care. I'd rather be fighting a battle with the D-swords I knew I couldn't win. Actually, I'd rather be stabbed with a D-sword. I wanted to feel pain. I thought that when the light came for the 30th time I could escape, because that would mean a month had passed. A month with 30 days. But nothing happened. The light kept coming at the same pace as before. When the light came again after 30 days passed, I stopped counting how many times it had come. I stopped counting to 100,000 too. What's the point of counting anyway? You're gonna stop counting? No. I heard that clearly. I started hearing voices sometimes when I neared the 30th appearance of the light. Are you going to die like this? What's Miyashita Park like? Hey, Miyashiro, how do you know again? Adios, gracias. Why'd you leave me to die, you idiot? Are you gonna die here? The newspaper club's just getting started, right? Tell me, why didn't you save me? It hurts so much when I died. Have you ever heard of Woodburn Heron? The voices came and disappeared without listening to my responses. I at least wanted to see their faces. I was already starting to forget what everyone looked like. Maybe if I saw them again, I could stop the darkness from swallowing up all my memories. I'll let you out of here. I'll go kill Dad for you. Really? I tried. I tried, but it didn't work. I couldn't do it alone. Should we help? Really? You'll do that for me? Thanks, Arimura. Don't underestimate the power of a teenage girl. Adios, gracias. Wait. What's wrong, Chikuru? No, don't tell me you're lonely by yourself. Give me a break. Not true. Of course I'm not lonely. No, I wanted to tell you to be careful. Dad's power is... What was it again? What's wrong? Where's Sakuma? I can't kill him if I don't know. Tell me you're wasting time. Oh, that's strange. He should be right there. There? Where's there? Takuru, have you ever heard of Woodburn Heron? Don't you know I'm a right-sider? Of course I know. He's the guy who came up with the theory that a day is 86,400 seconds. Amazing, right? Wait, that's wrong somehow. That's wrong somehow. I was slowly breaking and melting away. Suddenly I felt something stabbing me somewhere. It was the pain I'd been longing for, but I didn't care anymore. I was just tired of it. I'll kill you. Please don't stab me. Why? I don't want to die. Why? Because it hurts?
痛みなんて感じてないじゃない。タクル、あなた、本当にそこにいるの？
You aren't feeling any pain, Takuru. Are you really there? Nono kept stabbing me as if she was trying to find out where I was. When I finally stopped, I heard a wet slopping noise. I could tell her hands were jammed inside my body, rummaging through my guts. I could imagine the blood. But Nono was right. I didn't feel pain. That's strange. It hurt a moment ago. Nono, let me see you. Sorry, you can kill me if you want. Why? I want to see you. I want to see anybody. I'm lonely. Nono? Nono? Why did you leave? No, wait. Is that really Nono? Was that Nono's voice? Did she really talk like that? Wait. What was Nono's last name? The orphanage. I was blanking out on the place name. There were two sisters there. What were their names? No, was it a brother and sister? Everything was turning black. Who was the girl who told me not to lie? Who was the one in the coat? Who didn't talk? The one who always seemed scared? Who had been stabbing me a moment ago?
わからないの？
You don't know?
ひどい先輩っすね。
You're a terrible person, aren't you? Shut up. Suddenly the noises started to bother me. I didn't want to be criticized by these people when I didn't know their names. Please, somebody kill... I was surprised by a sudden fierce pain in my head. I could feel the blood flowing into my head. How many months had it been since I felt pain so clearly like this? No, years? Decades?
いつまでそんなことをしてるんですか？
How long are you gonna keep doing that?
私の方がずっと痛かったんだけど。
That's more for me. I said shut up. All of you shut up. I screamed back at the voices. I don't know who you people are. All of you just disappear.
助けて。助けて。
Save me. Save me, X? When I said someone's name, everything became better. All the voices disappeared and the pain in my head was gone.
タク？タク？大丈夫？
Tucker, are you okay? What? We're getting dialogue?
怪我は、平気だね。
You're not hurt. No, you're good. She was right next to me, as if that was the most natural place in the world for her to be.
おのえ。
No way, what are you doing here?
なんでここに。
お？私はいつもタクの隣にいるよ。
Huh? I'm always by your side, Tucker. That's impossible. If my dad used his mind control on me, I'd killed her.
そうだ。
That's right,
僕が。
I remember Dad used his mind control on me in the theater club at Ikariwo. So this was all just
僕の
a delusion of mine.
ただの妄想か。
Yep,
昔
just
み
like
たい
old
だね。
times, huh? Sarika laughed. I didn't know why.
で、どう？
But how do you like it?
何が？
What?
思考誘導、どんな感じ？
Mind control, how's it feel?
なかなかだよ。
It's pretty rough.
そう？結構居心地良さそうだけど、お腹も空かないんでしょ？
It looks pretty comfy. You don't get hungry either, right? Sarika looked around in the empty void. She was acting like she had just come over to check out a friend's new house.
お前な、一度こうなってみろよ。体を動かせないのがどんなに辛いか。
Listen, you know how much it sucks not being able to move if it ever happened to you.
そりゃ私は耐えられそうにないけど、タクはリハビリの時に経験済みじゃん。
Yeah, I don't think I could handle it, but you went through that during physical therapy, right?
あの時は動かそうとするたびにちゃんと痛みが走った。動いてなくても動かしてるっていう実感があったんだよ。
When I tried to move back then, I felt pain. Even if I wasn't moving, it felt like I was trying to move.
そういうもの？
Is that how it works? Rika tilted her head at me.
これ、向こうはどうなってる？
It's happening on the other side.
向こう？
The other side?
現実だよ。
Reality, I mean,
つま
Me
り
in the
シアタ
theater
ーキューブにいる僕だ。思考誘導を受けて多分倒れてるだろう。
I mean, the me in the theater cube. I'm probably lying on the ground after you use mind control on me, right? I didn't even have the slightest idea how much time had passed, but it had to have been longer than a day or two. The Restoration Festival was probably long since over, and I might have starved to death. Probably been like 5 minutes.
それはないんじゃないかな。だってタクちゃんと話してるし、生きてるってことでしょ？
I don't think so. If you're talking to me right now, that means you're alive, right?
そうだけど。
True, but
情報をまとめて理屈で考えろっていつも言ってるのはタクだよ。
you're the one who always talked about how you had to put information together and think things through logically, right? Right? It's true, it's true.
こっちと向こうの時間が違うとか？
Maybe time flows differently here and on the other side? That's right, that's possible.
ひなちゃんたちはどうしたの？
What happened to Hina and the others?
ひなちゃん。
Hina? Alright, Hina. Hina Arimura. How had I forgotten about her?
新庄さんたちと一緒に渋谷を抜け出したと思う。
I think she escaped Shibuya with Shinjo and others.
タチって誰？
Who are the others?
ウキちゃんとユウトくんと
Uki, Yudo, and
久野里さん。
Kunosada.
あれれ、はなちゃんは？
What about Hannah?
あいつは事件と直接関係ないから渋谷に残ってると思う。
She wasn't directly involved in the case. I had her stay in Shibuya.
そっか。
See. And Sorika started asking me one question after another. Could I really not move? Was the light I sometimes saw a hallucination? Were the voices I heard imaginary? I took a long time answering each one in as much detail as possible. I had plenty of time after all. Just the act of having a conversation was wonderful. It was something I'd done all the time in my daily life and at the newspaper club. Come to think of it, who had first used the phrase, you don't know what you've got till it's gone? And when did they use it?
わかんないよ。
I don't know.
ポケ
Should've
コ
brought
ン持
my
ってく
Pokémon,
ればよ
maybe.
かったかな。
I laughed a little low, though I wasn't sure if Sarika was serious or joking. Each time I'd answer a question, Sarika's expression would change. She'd laugh or get mad. Sometimes she'd even try to correct me. She really did seem like a normal person, but
何？
what is it?
お前、昔は僕の妄想でどこにもいなかったんだな。
Used to be a delusion of mine. You didn't really exist.
バレちゃった
I
か。
found out, huh? She acted like a kid who'd been caught while playing hide and seek.
他の人からはどう見えてたんだ？
How did it look to other people? If she wasn't real, I must have spent all my time as a kid talking to empty air.
どうって見たまんまだと思うけど。
I think it was just like you're thinking.
でもさ、私とタクが一緒にいるところなんてそんなに見られてないよ。
Not
タ
that
ク
many,
の両親くらいじゃない？
not that many people saw us together, right? Just your parents mostly?
あと、病院の地下で千里ちゃんにか。あれは失敗したな。そのせいで私、のんちゃんにバレちゃったんだよね。
Oh, and Senri in the hospital basement. That was a screw up. That's how Non found me out, you know? That's right, Sarika and I spent almost all our time in my room. I'd never been to her house. According to Kunasato, her house didn't actually exist.
言ってくれればよかったのに。
Could have told me.
そういうわけにはいかないよ。
I couldn't do that. She laughed, but she seemed a little bothered.
でも、あの時はどうだったんだ？
What about that one time?
渋谷地震。
Shibuya earthquake.
ああ。
Oh. I remembered carrying Sarika through the hell that was post-earthquake Shibuya. But if she'd only been born when I'd had that headache when I was carrying when I was in the yogi shelter, I hadn't been carrying her on my back at all. Only then did I remember why I was here. It wasn't to talk about old times.
よくわかんないけど、でもちょっと変くらいにしか見えてなかったと思うよ。ほら、私は気を失ってたからあんまり話してないし。
I don't know, maybe you seemed a little off? No, much worse than that. I was unconscious, so you didn't really talk to me much.
あんな状況じゃ、タクが独り言を言ってるとか、歩いてる姿勢がおかしいとか、別に誰も。
With everything else going on, I don't think anyone cared if you were talking to yourself or walking a little funny. Huh? Talking?
どうしたの？
What's wrong?
いや、
Nothing. If I could have moved my body, I would have been looking straight back into Sarika's eyes.
お前を生み出した時、僕はお前に何を望んだんだろう。
When I created you, what did I want from you?
それはね、わかんないよ。
You know, I'm not sure. She didn't seem surprised or upset at
だっ
all.
て、今の私はタクの知ってることしか知らないもん。
I only know what you know right now.
向こうの彼女しか知らないことだもん。
Only the me in the real world knows the answer to that. That's right. Zorika in front of me might look alive, but she's really just a delusion of mine. She wouldn't know anything I didn't. I'd created her again just to help me get through this. She was just... Oh. You can use your delusions. You can use your delusions, and you can fabricate people. Come on, man. And when I realized it, I was disgusted with myself. I felt so pathetic, I wanted to cry. How could I be so shameless? I killed the real Sarika.
向こうの尾上を殺したんだぞ。
Erica. Even if it was a trap created by Dad's mind control, I'd still killed her with my own hands. She'd almost killed me, and I'd lost control and killed her instead. Dude, like, she's a delusional character. You could possibly resurrect her. It seems very doable. Like, if your power is create people via illusion, you could, like, resurrect her as not an evil version? Or something, right? Or you could just resurrect the still living one, because it's your creation, you can manipulate it, right? Just restore her to full health or some shit. That's why I said, like, you could conjure people. Anyway, the fact that a second person's here, no, you could, because our character can conjure people, in theory, this could actually be a useful delusion for him, because he could have made a theoretical real person, second person inside his mind here. And he might use that to break out. Let's see. We might just sit through the several months or whatever. She almost killed me. I'd lost control and killed her instead. I'd torn open her stomach injury and strangled her, saying I'd been mind controlled was just an excuse. The rage and desire to kill her I'd felt would have been real. Even without the mind control, the same thing happened in reality. I'd do it again. I'd kill her. But Onoe was different. Even when the imaginary me tried to kill her, she'd chosen to die than resist, unlike me. But then I'd wish for her again, just like I'd done during the Shibuya earthquake. And I'd come to her for help again. I couldn't handle the darkness on my own, so I'd created her. I couldn't imagine a worse person than myself.
別に気にすることないよ。私、ここにいられて楽しいもん。
You shouldn't let it bother you, you know? I'm having fun. Enough, stop it.
タクが呼んでくれなかったら、話すこともできなかったし。
If you hadn't called me here, we wouldn't get to talk. Don't tell me exactly what I want to hear. Come to think of it, Sarika's always like that since I was little. When I was neglected, she was always jealous of me. She always made me think I was better off than she was. Whenever I wanted to show off some new piece of information I learned, she'd act interested. She pretended to be a stupid girl that I'd always get to think of myself as a right-sider.
ごめんな。本当に。
Sorry. I'm really sorry.
ごめん。
タク。
I'm so sorry. Taku. Sarika looked hurt when she saw me apologize. Why don't you understand? You don't have to apologize. This is what makes me happy, she seems to say. But she only looked that way because I wanted her to. My ego and desire created the role of a kind-hearted young girl that she was forever forced to play. The two of us were like that for a little while. I kept apologizing and Sarika seemed to not want to hear it. Eventually she spoke to me like a mother scolding her
タク
child.
はね、それでも私を許しちゃいけないんだよ。
But that doesn't mean you can forgive me. What?
私、のんちゃんを殺しちゃったんだから。
I killed Nonna.
そうでしょ？
でも、
But the
そ
reason
の理由
might
が
be my fault.
僕のせいかもしれないんだ。
It wasn't a maybe. There had to be something connected
け
with
ど
me.
私は死んじゃったから聞くことはできないでしょ？
But I'm dead. You can't ask me now, right? Sarika was right. No, I was forcing her to be
じゃあ
right.
さ、
So then, of course, I knew what she would say next. Sarika's voice became a light and the one thing that lit up my path in this dark world.
タクはどうしたいの？
What do you want to do, Taku? Suddenly, I saw a scene I remembered well. Till a moment ago, the blackness had kept me from remembering, no matter how hard I tried to imagine them. But now I can see my family. They must have been getting ready for dinner. I smelled something good. I looked in the kitchen and saw a lineup of dishes fit for a nursing home. Yui, Uki, if you start taking cooking lessons from Nono, they're going to start calling you Mom and Granny at school. Yuto was in the corner sulking because Yui had made fun of him. Yui was looking at him and laughing. Uki didn't know what to do. Nono gave Yui a brief scolding, but she was smiling when she did it. It was the same thing I'd seen a million times before. Nothing was different. Everyone was in the club room going over the case. We seemed to be talking about Shibuya news. Kuno Sato had updated some information. Kazuki was playing her game. Ito went to stop her, but froze when she offered him a piece of dried squid. Arimura told the stupid joke, and Ito blushed and started to shake his head frantically. There was still no expression on Kazuki's face. This was another scene I knew well. But this world was never coming back. My dad had destroyed it.
それで、いいの?
Are you okay with that? Of course not. I loved my family and my friends. Those places were the most precious things I had. He'd ruined them all, and when I'd asked him why, the only reason he could give me was that it was fun. I couldn't let him get away with that. No matter what I did, Yui and Nono weren't coming back. The life I'd had with my friends was gone. My feelings began to break free from the darkness and come to life again. Blood flowed through my body once more, and my senses started to return to me. That's right, I have to get revenge.
ダメだ。
Even if it meant breaking my promise to Nono. You mean Nono's request. You didn't actually make a promise to her. I didn't care what my dad was trying to accomplish with his experiment, or what was happening to me. He wanted something from me. What was it? I don't even know.
それを知ろうとしなくていいの?
You don't want to try and find out?
いい。
No. I didn't care. I refused to go crazy like he wanted.
なんか、たくらしくないね。
うるさいな。
Shut up.
でも、感情だけで頑張っちゃうタクも、ちょっと見てみたいな。
But I kind of want to see what you look like when you're letting your emotions take control. I smiled back at her, and then I focused all my neurons on creating a delusion. Where had I been? Who was I so angry at, and where were they standing? If I was in a prison of delusions created by that machine, then I'd have to come with a delusion that was even more powerful. And I'd pull him into my own delusion. The way I remembered it, it was like this.
もうちょっと明るくなかった？天井から照明当たってるんでしょ?
Wasn't it a little brighter? The lights shining down on the stage, right? Were they? Ah, that's better.
多分これく
Yeah,
ら
I
い。
think about this
あ
much.
と、
Oh,
もうちょっと近かった。
a bit closer. Closer, huh? How about this? Beautiful.
オッケー。さすが、カメラいじってるだけあるね。
This guy's decided to go full Shiro and is just like, I'll just trace the entire room I'm in and make a better illusion. I'll just trace the entire room I'm in and make a perfect replica of it. Alright, sounds good. Thanks. Alright. Yeah, those long hours for the camera really paid off. Sarika walked around the stage checking to see if there was anything I missed. She must have been satisfied because she nodded several times.
タクの立ち位置もオッケー?
Is the place you're standing okay too, Taku?
意識が飛んだ時のままならな。
If I'm still where I was then? Yeah.
違ってたらどうするの?
What if you are?
その時はその時
Come up
だ。
with something when the time comes.
確実な方法なんてありっこないんだからな。
There's no sure way to do this, you know? Sarika pretended to be impressed with what I said. I laughed at myself too. Was I really the type of person who was brave enough to go through with something like this? Well, unfortunately your dad gave you like fucking forever to think things through, which is like the only thing that's stopping you from doing something when it's when shit gets serious. Alright. I used to think it was that risky decisions weren't courageous, but stupid. I used to think that courage was just a word people use to hide their stupidity.
あ、そうだ。
Oh,
タク?
right, Taku.
私の仇は取っちゃダメだよ。
Don't try to avenge me, okay? What?
のんちゃんたちの仇は取らなきゃダメ。でも、私の仇は ダメ。当たり前でしょ？
You have to get revenge for Non, but no taking revenge for me, okay?
それは
That's
いいから。とにかくその瞬間、タクが思っていいのは、のんちゃんたちだけ。
the only person you're allowed to think of when you do it is Non. Got it? Phrasing. Alright. Alright, I'm sorry, and thanks. Those are the only words I could come up with. I didn't know what else I could say.
ほら、タク、ちゃんとしてよ。じゃないと、私が来た意味なくなっちゃうじゃん。
Come on, Taku, get a hold of yourself. Otherwise, why did I come here? Sarika pouted a little. It was the same thing she used to do in the newspaper club. I tried to stop my tears from welling up again.
ちゃんとしてるよ。この僕がちゃんとしてなかったことなんてあるか？
I'm fine, I'm in control. Have I ever not been in control? Sir, do you want a list? Do you want a list? It's gonna be like one of those CSV receipts. Or CVS? CSV? What? CVS receipts, I believe. So like, the ones that are like, you buy one item and it's like a receipt that goes from your head to the floor. Y'all know what I'm talking about.
と、
There was that one time, or the other time.
それから、
And then,
指を折って数えるな。
stop counting them on your fingers. She laughed. And then she looked right in my eyes.
多分、向こうへ戻った瞬間、その一瞬にしか、あいつの隙はないよ。だからチャンスは。
You'll probably have one moment when he's off his guard when you come back. So your chance?
一度あれば十分だ。
One chance is plenty. That's right, I'd have a few seconds in the world of my delusion. And a few seconds when I got back to reality. I'd probably have less than 5 seconds total. If he'd been researching psychics for as long as he'd said, he'd noticed what I'd done immediately. So I'd only get one shot. If it didn't work, he'd kill me this time. Sarika looked relieved when she saw my resolve, and then she smiled and started to fade away as if her job was done. At the same time, I felt a stabbing pain in my head. It was the pain from when the D sword appeared. Here it comes!
無謀なことにかける覚悟は、オッケー？
This would be a risky bet, okay?
オッケー。
Okay.
掛け金が自分の命だっていう現実は、オッケー？
You're betting your own life, okay?
オッケー。
Okay.
バカな決断に言い訳をしない意志は、オッケー？
No excuses for your dumb decision, okay?
オッケー。
Alright then.
じゃあ行って！舞台に上がって！
Go, get up on that stage, Taki. Oh no, we're playing the theme song. I slammed my own delusion down on top of the one that held me. It was like splattering bright paint on a black canvas. In a single instant, a perfect replica of the theater appeared. It was working. Dad was in front of me, looking surprised. I could tell from the shock on his face he hadn't yet realized. This was a world of delusion atop another delusion, and I dragged him inside. The machine on his back started to creak and moan. Its shape was becoming warped and distorted, as if it was being crushed by an invisible giant. I screamed louder as I tried to use my power to destroy it. Dad stepped back as if to protect it. The look on his face made it clear he couldn't believe this was happening. Why wouldn't he just attack with the sword? He's like, even if he can't kill you with it, all he has to do is like, you know, beat you up because he weighs like 10 times your weight. Anyway. Alright. It was too late though. Crush it. Crush. Crush it! There we go. Crush. I hit him with a stronger delusion, and the outer frame couldn't take the stress. The machine started to break. You little shit. Dad panicked and raised his D-sword to use his mind control on me again. A red light flashed in front of me, but it wasn't the mind control again. It was the opposite. This is the key to the plan the other Serika and I had come up with. Dad, Sakuma had made a mistake. He thought I escaped from his mind control on my own. He thought I'd escaped from that delusion and made it to reality. So he did what we hoped he would, and ended the mind control on me now. Even though I was still inside the dark prison. If he stayed calm, he would have noticed his mistake immediately. It was all so sudden he'd panicked and made the wrong decision. The black torture chamber was gone, and in that instant I canceled my own delusion. The bonds that had tied me in place were gone. My senses came back and told me this is reality. The pain of my injury, the smell of blood, the taste of blood, the feeling of the D-sword in my hand, Dad howling as he stood there with his fake sword raised high. Just getting back to reality wasn't good enough. I had a few seconds, probably. I needed to destroy the real device before he figured out the trick. Run. What? Okay. Overrunning toward them, right? I forced my aching body to move and ran at full speed towards my foe. I lowered my body as I ran and held the D-sword ready. A new attempt at mind control came at me. I could feel it trying to scramble my brain, but I wasn't stopping. I couldn't stop. I bit hard on my lip and used the pain to check my 5 senses. You're okay, don't stop. Run. Keep running. I swung the D-sword down at my father. Dad tried to dodge it, but that was just what I wanted. He ducked low and I could clearly see the device on his back. I slammed the D-sword into it hard before he could move. The lights go out. The sword turns off. Oh, interesting. I was expecting it to fade out of existence. Dude, keep swinging. Keep swinging, bro. Keep swinging. Just because his sword's power... If that thing just powers down and it's still a hunk of metal that's weightless, that's still pretty scary. Or even worse, it has mass, so he can just kill you with it, right? Panting, I pulled the D-sword out of the device. Parts flew everywhere. The strange light it was giving off disappeared, and the artificial D-sword he was holding lost its shine. The pain created by his mind control attempts vanished, like it was never there. And as soon as I saw the device was destroyed, I fell to my knees. I'd used my power while running at full speed. It hurt to breathe. I was dizzy from lack of oxygen. His sword is real. His sword is real, dude. It can no longer interact with your sword. You can just kill him. Before he runs away. Oh, well, we'll see. You piece up. We'll see. Dad's mood suddenly began to change. He seemed to realize what I'd just done. The smile on his face vanished, and instead of anger, there was no expression at all. You know how hard I worked to get this thing back together? I'd never heard him use a tone like that before. He's not acting, he's ranting. What? Why didn't you break? Why are you alive? No, why are you still saying there's no way you could have endured that? I literally have an imaginary friend. I know, I locked you in there for 30 days. Did I screw up? No, there's no way that guy could do it. No, I couldn't. I used the D-sword of support to help me to my feet. It was fine, I could move. I could move just the way I wanted to. I was sure of it, I'd made it back to reality. Answer me, how can you move? I readied the D-sword again without saying a word. There was no expression on Dad's face. I see. Her, huh? So that's it? So that's it? I looked down. Marika was lying there looking like she was asleep, even though she was dead. Dad's anger vanished, and instead he started to speak like a scientist observing a guinea pig. It was even creepier somehow. See, your imaginary friend was enough to get you through, huh? I didn't see you going to the person you just killed for help. It's no fun at all. Dad raised the now dull D-sword and came towards me. See, it's a functional sword, right? It was no longer an artificial D-sword, but it was still a giant metal blade. That must weigh a fuck ton. Holy shit. If that's a real metal sword, that must weigh a ton! Even without his powers, it was more than capable of killing me. I stepped away from him, my own weapon at the ready. It felt like if I looked away from him, I'd be killed. I told you to get mad, didn't I? Didn't I? The iron blade suddenly came down. There was an impact on my face. I felt some of my back teeth break and blood splurted from it. I'd been knocked to the floor. I swung the D-sword in my hand frantically. For a moment, I experienced the pain and light that were caused by mind control. That thing was still working? It wasn't broken? It had to be. I dropped the D-sword in despair. It vanished. But the mind control never came. My attack a moment ago had damaged it. It's really broken. Damn kid. Sakuma's iron sword struck me on the left leg. An indescribably awful pain ran up my spine and smashed into my brain.
んなことなら最初から拷問室にでも思考誘導しとくべきだったな。なんなら今やってやろうか。リアルで。よ！
That's not a bad picture. I like they pulled the main character out of focus because he's in the foreground. Have the intimidating dad on the side. Nice, nice. I should have used the mind control to put you in the torture room from the start. Maybe I'll torture you for real right now. How do you like that, huh? It hurt. The pain was unbearable. Is this plan stupid after all? Was there no way to win? Dude, if you just cut him in half, it would have been so easy. Oh, well, you took the machine and then you didn't do anything. Is there no way to win? Take this. We need to be more desperate again though.
ダメだな。通覚からの発狂じゃ何にも新しいもんは得られねえか。
There's nothing new to be learned by driving someone mad with pain. What happened to my leg, my body? Were they still there? I couldn't move, just like in that black prison.
なら、あいつらをお前の目の前で殺してみるか。
Maybe I'll kill them all in front of you then. What? I can hear those words clearly, even as my whole body screamed from
多
pain.
分まだ渋谷を出てねえだろ
They're probably still in Shibuya, right? The instant I understood what he meant, I forgot the pain coursing through my body.
ああ、それでいいんだよ。お前にとってそれが大事なものであればあるほど効果は高えからな。
That's right, the more important they are to you, the better it'll work. He kicked me and I rolled along the ground. Then he started to walk away. My throat hurt as I screamed. It was frustrating. I couldn't even speak. I couldn't even yell, wait, wait. Damn, alright. Coming out as a gurgle. He was leaving. He was going somewhere. Where? Where else to where they were? He was going after the people I loved. I won't let you go. I tried to stand up, but the leg he'd struck wouldn't move, and I fell to the ground. I hit my face on the floor. My left leg wouldn't move. Was it broken? It was the one place I didn't feel any pain. My body wouldn't move. Why? I'd finally made it out of that darkness, right? I couldn't just let him go. I don't move. I don't care what moves. Move! Move! He was gonna kill them right in front of me. Kill Arimura, Uki, Udo, Kunosato. I wouldn't let him. I wouldn't let him do it. As my vision blurred from the pain, I saw Sarika's body lying on the ground.
のんちゃんたちの仇は取らなきゃダメ。でも、私の仇はダメ。
You have to take revenge
当
for
たり前
Non.
でしょ
No revenge for me. Got it?
絶対に
I won't let you.
させるか
I howled. I won't let you. And... Alright, D-sword's back. My D-sword appeared as if an answer, and then... It sliced through the air towards my dad as he walked away. What? How does he see this sword, by the way? Wow! I did ask him to do that. I asked him to do that when he was across the theater from him, and he finally does it. Nice. 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 It took him a while, but he figured out, wait a minute, I'm a telekinetic. It doesn't fucking matter. It doesn't fucking matter. Just aerodynamics? You're telekinetic. Who cares? My dad turned around at the noise just in time for the D-sword to impale his throat. Alright, nice kill, Sakura. As awkward as it was, I'll give you credit. Remember, he can't actually see the sword, and it's like... It seems to be a one-way interaction with matter. Or maybe it's just invisible, I don't know. He probably can't see the sword, right? If he doesn't have his magic, he probably can't see your invisible sword, because he's not actually a thingy, right? As long as you don't telegraph your attacks, you should be okay to do some funky shit. I don't know if it's invisible or just intangible for people like ghosts are. Oh well. He slowly fell backward to the floor. Nice, nice. I somehow managed to endure the pain that was coursing through my body and stand up. There was blood everywhere on the stage. I avoided it, dragging my unmoving left leg as I walked towards the body that used to be my dad. Dude, like, ring up Shinjo and be like, dude, it fucking sucks, man. I'll be like, yeah, I wouldn't be telling you that I broke both my legs. I wouldn't be telling you that I broke one of my legs and got mind controlled for 5 months in an empty chamber if it wasn't fucking real, man. The D-sword was still shining as it stuck out of his throat. I made it disappear. When I saw what was left, I didn't feel a sense of accomplishment or anything else. Just an urge to vomit. He was lying on the ground. I'd killed him. I'd killed my dad. We can call you Patricide Chan too. The hell's going on? How could this have happened? Taking revenge for Nono and Yui? Didn't make me feel any better at all. I didn't feel happy at all. I'd realized I was crying. I didn't know how long I'd been crying, but my tears were red. Everything around me felt like a lie. I was having trouble standing, and not just because of my injury. This is how it felt to cross the line you should never cross. I tried to smile and forget my tears. What was I doing? Is this how it felt to break my promise to Nono? Oh right, Sarika. I remember the real reason I'd come here. There was something I wanted to ask her. I looked away from Dad and walked over to Sarika, dragging my leg behind me.
そうか。それも
Right.
もう叶わないのか。
It's not happening now, is it? I looked down at Sarika and reached out my hand. I wanted to at least fix up her clothes where they'd been messed up. There was a loud, heavy noise and an impact around my stomach. Huh? What was that? I looked down at my body, trying to find the source of the sound and noise, and there was a D-sword sticking out of my stomach. It was the same one that had taken Nono's life on the roof of Hekiho Academy. Number 6. 2015, Friday. The second Shibuya Restoration Festival was now over. Murmuring among the crowd at Memorial Park started as soon as the ward mayor finished his speech. Some people headed straight for the station, glad to be done. Some people were so moved by speeches given by the victims that they stood in front of the memorial wiping away their tears. Some people went to go drinking since it was Friday. They'd all come to Restoration Festival for different reasons. But even now, when the planned festivities were over, there were still some people who hadn't seen what they'd come for. What? He's not here. The idiot said he was gonna be here. The whispers started all over the place. and others agreed, even though they'd never say it, and all looked around with searching eyes. Everyone was looking for Takuru Miyashiro. At the same time, Shibuya Scramble Crossing. The place was even more packed than Memorial Park, and the reaction was even stronger.
Of
course he's not gonna kill myself. Don't believe everything you read, you dumbass wrong-sider. Oh, that ticks me off. Some started to say that the whole thing was a hoax, and more people began to leave. The ones that didn't move at all were the ones in the masks. They were waiting for Takuru Miyashiro more than anyone, but the festival was over. When the heat and passion of the festival began to fade, reality came crashing in and they began to doubt. He was the mastermind behind all those murders. They thought it'd be nothing for him to commit suicide in public. Were they wrong? Or was someone like that brilliant capable of making an announcement like that and then managing to escape? The ones that stood in groups began to stare at each other with their three-eyed masks, trying to guess what the others were thinking. Did they move somewhere with less people? They waited for someone to suggest it. What's that? Then something happened that saved them. At the center of the commotion were police officers running somewhere in a hurry.
いや、ちょっと待ってください。
Wait a second, I'm telling you. Shinjo kept suggesting they get confirmation, but his boss ignored him. When the information came in, he lost his ability to control the situation. Wait, damn it. He cursed at the phone as they hung up on him. This is bad. This is really bad. What's wrong?
久野里さん、車で待ってろと。
Kuno-san, I told you to wait in the car.
待たせすぎる。何があったんだ。
You made me wait too long. What happened? Shinjo looked at the time. It had already been 10 minutes after he'd gone back to Alba Dorm and gotten everyone into the car.
タレコミがあったらしい。宮代君が光王にいること、もうバレてる。
There was an anonymous call. They know Miyashiro's at the Hikariwo.
何？
It was probably the first time he'd ever seen her go pale.
どこからの情報だ？
Who told them?
わからない。
I don't know.
捜査
HQ
本部は
insists it doesn't
ど
matter.
こからでもいいだろうの一点張りだ。
Shinjo had repeatedly asked for a source, but it didn't help. From the way his boss had been acting, it was possible they didn't even know where it had come from.
うちの連中がもう光王に向かってる。
Our officers are on their way to Hikariwo right now.
あんたはどうするんだ？
What will you do? Now that the police knew Miyashiro was at the Hikariwo, there was no time to go to Akihabara and back. He had to be there. It was his job. He was the detective in charge of the case, and if Miyashiro was going to be arrested, he was the only one who could help. But getting the kids from Alba Dorm was something only he could do. What should he do? He kept asking himself that. Ask Kunosato to drive the car. Holy shit. Ask Kunosato to drive the car and walk. Damn, man. Like, just think about this. She's like a genius. She knows literally everything. She probably just knows how to drive a car. She's probably driven a car like 5 times. She's probably driven a car more than he's driven a car. Like, who knows? But just tell her to drive. It's that important to get them out. What should he do? He kept asking himself.
行ってこい。
Go.
こっちはこっちで。
We'll escape Shibuya on
勝手
our
に渋
own.
谷を脱出する。
え？
What?
脱出ってい
You
う
don't know
の
what's
が
gonna happen if you try.
何が起こるかわからないんだぞ。
That's why he'd remained as a guard.
なんとかするさ。
I'll figure something out. Just leave the car.
車だけは置いていけよ。
See? I told you she could drive! What? She couldn't mean he had a bad feeling. Did Kunosato have an international license? I don't think it matters.
無免許運転を取り
Is
締ま
this
っ
the
てる場
time
合
to be
か。
worried about unlicensed
Don't
drivers?
take
Go!
あのな。
Oh, she doesn't have a license at all. Listen. Suddenly his phone began to ring. This time it was from one of his men. There wasn't even time to think about it anymore. He prayed as he tossed Kunosato the key. Nice. I told you, she's
子
gonna
供
just
たちが
drive
乗
it.
ってるんだ。無茶な運転はするな。
There's kids in that car. Don't do any crazy
当然
driving.
だ。
Of course.
私を誰
Of
だと
course.
思ってい
Who
る。
do you think I am? You're like someone who's rarely controllable and does whatever the fuck they want.
何かあったらすぐ
Call
に
me
連
if
絡し
something
ろ。
happens.
それが無理なら、どこでもいい。交番に駆け込んで、俺の名前を出せ。
If that doesn't work, run into the police box and give them my name. Shinjo ran off without waiting for an answer.
新庄さん。
Shinjo.
あ？
Huh? He turned around. Kunasato had a totally earnest look on her face as she
ア
spoke.
クセルは確か右だったな。
The accelerator's on the right, isn't it? Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Shinjo had to force himself not to go grab the keys out of her hand. Look it up on the internet, wrong side, or he yelled as he ran towards the Hikariwa. Alright. Hikariwa? Hikariwa? Yeah. Huh? It was cold. I was sleepy, my body wouldn't move. What? Was I back in that world? That dark prison? No. I could still feel pain. My senses were still working. What was this? I remembered where I was. I'd passed out? Ah, my back, my stomach. I felt the warmth fading from my body with each drop of blood I lost. But my wounds burned again like someone was pressing a smoldering iron against them. And for some reason, I felt sleepy. That didn't make sense. My whole body stopped making sense. I heard footsteps. They were getting further away. I forced my eyes to open and look towards the source of the sound. The first thing I saw was my dad's body. The body of the man I had killed. Until a moment ago, he had still been a person. And beyond him, I saw her through my blurry eyes. Oh, no way. She was getting further away. It was Sarika. She was alive. She was walking. And she just put her phone in her pocket. She was walking across the stage, probably heading for the exit high among the seats. She didn't look back. Why are you alive? It wasn't a hallucination, at least. It shouldn't have been. No one was left who could use mind control. Wait, oh no, wait. There's something I have to ask you. That's why I'd come. Move, damn it. Come on, this is supposed to be my body, right? Why wasn't it moving when I tell it to? Sarika stepped off the stage. She made her way through the seats to leave. She was about to disappear. Oh, don't, wait. Come on, move. Suddenly I felt a familiar pain in my head. I obeyed my intuition and let it go. The D sword appeared in my hand. That's right, I could do it. Just like I've done before. I used my power to fling the sword at Sarika. I didn't care if it landed at her feet or where it landed at all. I just had to stop her. Sarika sensed it coming and turned around. At the same time, a light appeared around her. Her D sword appeared from within the light and she grabbed it. And easily blocked the incoming blade. When the two swords hit, my vision went white. You want me to use mind control on you? Yes, here we go. What? What was going on? What was I looking at? I got a lot of questions, but can I start by asking why?
クルス・ノノを殺害する前、その思考を読んだ。彼女は遺言として手紙を残してきている。
I read Nono Kurusa's letter before I killed her. She left a letter behind.
涙ぐましいことだな。殺されるのを覚悟してたってことか、あいつ。
Ah, how heartrending. She knew she was going to be killed then?
すでに警察に渡っているだろう。遅かれ早かれ、宮代拓もそれを読むことになる。そうなったら。
The police probably already have it. Sooner or later, Miyashiro is going to read it, and when that happens...
宮代はあの手紙に、クルス・ノノの死に縛られる。あいつは遺言に従おうとするだろう。
He'll be held back by her death and what's inside. He'll try to do what the letter says.
遺言ってのは何だ?
And what does it say?
復讐をしようとするな。もう事件を追うな。
Don't try and get revenge. Give up on the case. The usual controlling stuff from Nono.
そうなれば、宮代は絶対に事件を追わなくなる。それは私にとって都合が悪い。
If that happens, Miyashiro will stop for sure. That's a problem for me.
だから、復讐や事件のことではなく、この私自身に興味を持たせるしかない。 それで彼は必ず動くだろう。
I have to make him interested in something besides revenge or the case. I have to make him interested in me. That will make him act.
そうか、なんでそんなことまでわかんだ。
And how do you know that?
私は宮代のことなら何でも理解できる。そういう存在だからだ。
I know everything there is to know about Miyashiro. That's who I am.
ああ、思考誘導しなきゃいけねえのはなんでだ。
Why do I have to use mind control?
彼のそばには有村ひなえがいる。あの能力を無効化したい。
I'll have Hine Arimura with him. I want to neutralize her power.
思考誘導で私自身が嘘を信じ込んでしまえば、それはもう嘘ではなくなり、真実として有村に認識されるだろう。もちろん、宮代にもな。
Good plan, good plan. If the mind control causes me to believe the lie, it stops being a lie. Arimura will think it's the truth, and so will Miyashiro.
ああ、伊藤ってガキと同じ手だな。
Ah, so the same trick we used with that Ito kid. Sarika was talking with Dad. The vision was unclear, like it was wrapped in fog. But this was...
でもめんどくせえな。タクルのやつに直接誘導をかけちまえば、それで済む問題じゃないのかよ。
Whole thing's a pain. It would be so much easier to use mind control on Takuru himself, right?
あっと、怒んなよ。
Hey, don't get mad. Don't get mad.
彼に対して可能な限り思考誘導はかけない。あれは脳をダメにする。そうだったな。
I want to minimize the use of mind control on him as much as possible. It damages the brain, correct?
ああ、でも最後はもう一回使わせてもらうぜ。誘導なしじゃ、ギガロマニアックス相手に勝ち目なんてね。
I'm gonna use it one more time at the very end. No way can I beat a Gigalomaniac without it.
もう一
He
度だけ
actually
だぞ。
did, ironically enough. Just one more time, got it?
わかってるよ。
Alright, got it. I could see the two of them talking. It looked like it was an old movie shown through a projector that was slightly out of focus. I wasn't really seeing it. The vision seemed to be coming directly into my mind.
じゃあ次だ。お前の思考にどう誘導をかける？
Okay, next. What kind of mind control do you want?
筋書きはこうだ。
The script will work like this. Ha! 100% scripted. There we go.
一つ。すでに委員会との関係を断たれているお前が委員会へ戻ろうと野心を抱いている。この作り話を私に信じ込ませろ。
You've lost contact with the committee and want to get in their good graces. Make me believe this lie. Second.
その野心のためにお前は協力者の私を裏切り、宮代拓を犯人に仕立て上げようとしている。
Second, you've betrayed me and are trying to make Mishiro out to be the criminal in order to win the committee's favor. Make me believe this as well.
3つ。しかるべきタイミングで彼の両親を殺したのは私だと私自身の口から伝えるように誘導。
Third, make me tell him myself at the appropriate time that I was the one who killed his parents.
そして最後は
And finally,
私の生きる目的を変えろ。
change the reason I exist. That's right, these are probably Sarika's memories. Were her memories coming to me via the D-Sword?
俺までその嘘話の中に巻き込むのかよ。
You want to involve me in your lies
そ
too?
うしなければならない。有村の能力とは別に障害となる人間がもう一人いる。久野里美代だ。
I have to. There's another person besides Arimura who's a threat to the plan. Mio Kunosato.
あいつか。
Her.
なるほどな。
I see.
久野里美代は事情に精通しすぎているが、だからこそ委員会の話をでっち上げる。あの女は委員会のこととなると冷静さを失うからな。
She knows too much about what's going on. That's why we have to make up the story about the committee. Whoever the committee is involved, she stops thinking straight.
私が委員会の情報を持っていると思い込めば、絶対に手放そうとしないはずだ。皮肉な話だが、久野里のおかげで私は宮代の近くに留まることができる。
We can make her think I have information on the committee. She'll never let me go. Ironically, thanks to her, I'll be able to stay near Miyashiro.
お前おっかねえ女だな。そこまで考えてるってのか。いや、思考盗撮のおかげってやつ
You're
か。
a scary woman. You figured that out on your own, or is that thanks to your mind
こ
reading?
のゲームの登場人物を動かしているのは私だ。
I'm the one controlling all the characters in this game. Game? I remembered something. The theory I'd come up with in the newspaper club room. But it was like the killer challenging me to a game, the killer moving people around like chess pieces. And they wanted me to be the other player in the game, but once my dad identified himself as the killer, I'd given up on the theory. I thought I was wrong. But maybe I was right?
なるほど、ゲームね。俺も楽しいことは好きだがよ。 短い間とはいえ、てめえの人生の目的まで変えようとは思わねえな。
See a game, huh? I like anything that's fun, though I don't like the idea of changing the reason you exist, even for a short while.
余計なことは言わなくていい。お前は宮代の真のギガロマニアックスのデータが取れればそれでいいのだろう。その欲求は満たしてやる。
You don't need to get involved. All you want is data on Miyashiro, on the true Gigalomaniac, right? I'll give you what you want.
まあ、確かにそうだ。ただ、何回も言ってるがよ。俺がやろうとしてることに、タクルの精神が耐えられる可能性はゼロだぜ。
Oh, that's true. Though I've said this before, the chance of Takuru's mind enduring what I'm planning on doing to him is zero.
昔所属してた AH 東京総合病院の地下施設。そこの責任者から直々に伝授された拷問だからな。
I picked this method of torture up directly from the guy who ran the basement facility under AH Tokyo.
彼を見くびるな。私も何回もそう言っている。
Don't underestimate him. I've said that many times before as well.
壊しちまっていいんだな。そこに手は出さないって取り決めだもんな。
You don't mind if I break him, do you? We both decided you wouldn't interfere.
お前に思考誘導の装置さえなければ誰より先に殺していたな。
If you didn't have that mind control device, I would have killed you first.
面白いな。やってみるか？
Sounds fun. Wanna try?
クズか。
Scum.
おっとそうだ、もう一つ。なんであいつを犯人に仕立てる必要がある？お前はあいつが事件を解決すればそれでいいんだろう？
One more thing. Why do you need me to make him look like the killer? You just want him to solve the case, right?
それは
That's... My vision blurred. There seemed to be a chorus of buzzing in my head. Feeling it was the same as when I used my power, the same as when I saw the D-sword in the corner of my vision. Another vision came to me through her D-sword.
彼の中の彼が私に言う。
The him inside him speaks to me.
自分は他の人とは違う。よくそういう人がいるけれど、ほとんどが勘違いだ。みんなそのことに気づいてない情弱ばかり。でも僕だけは本当に他の人と違う。
I'm different from other people. Lots of people say that, but most of them are wrong. They're all wrong-siders who just don't realize it. I'm the only one who's really different. Was this me?
あの地獄のような渋谷を生き抜いた。そして両親を誰かに殺された。特別という言葉の定義は他と明確な区別があること。
I survived the nightmare of Shibuya earthquake, and someone killed my parents. The definition of special is something that clearly differentiates it from others.
こんな経験をしている人はそんなにいない。だから。
You have experienced these things, that's why.
僕は本当に特別なんだ。
I'm really special. That's why I'm really special.
なあ、渋谷地震の被災者のコメントの話ってしたことあったっけ？
I ever tell you about the comments from Shibuya earthquake victims?
何それ？
What do you mean?
地震直後の混乱が収まった後、大量のマスコミが被災者に対して押しかけただろ。
Remember how just after the
ハウスチャイ
chaos...
ルド症候群者
we're
って
still
い
going.
う言葉がなかった頃に。
Remember how just after the chaos from the earthquake calmed down, a ton of reporters started asking victims for comments before the term chaos child syndrome existed?
その取材の論調の多くは民度の高さを訴えるものだった。これだけの震災にもかかわらず、暴動や略奪などの犯罪がほとんど起きていない。これは得難いことなんだって。
Most of the interviews were about what good citizens we were. After that huge disaster, there was barely any violence or looting. They said this was amazing.
実際そうなんだと思うよ。
I think they're right.
何が今一番辛いですかって聞かれたとき、大半の被災者が地方の家族に自分の無事を伝えてやれないこととか。
When they asked the victims what was the hardest part, others were more concerned about... Most people were concerned about others than themselves.
子供に好物を与えてやれないこととか。
They said they couldn't contact their families and tell them they were safe.
とにかく他人を
Or
心
they
配して
wouldn't
てさ。
give their kids they couldn't give their kids their favorite foods.
でも、そんな中で一人の被災者が言ったんだよ。
Then one person said something different. I remembered what they said word for word. It had left a huge impression on me.
頑張れという部外者。
You outsiders have some nerve if you're telling us to hang in there. I remembered. It's what I'd said to Sarika at the cafe. It was just after the Love Hotel incident. Yeah, I remember that.
彼
we
は
didn't get his picture.
当事者であろうとすることにこだわっている。それは幼い頃から変わらない。
Incredibly important to him. He'd be a part of things. That's who he is at his core.
よくもまあ誰かがつぶやいてたっていう程度の情報だけで一喜一憂できるよな。僕にはとても真似できないよ。
I don't know how people get so worked up over a single tweet. I could never do that.
早速昨日起きた放火事件を調べに行こう。現場が近いんだ。かなり美味しいぞ。
Check out that arson site from yesterday. It's close to here. This one looks pretty good.
彼はネットに潜り、情報に溺れ、きれいに泳ぐために情報強者となることを目指し、試してくれる都市伝説を好んだ。
He dove deep into the internet, drowned in information, and tried to become a right-sider to help himself swim. And he chose an urban legend to test his abilities.
そして興味は現実の事件へと広がる。きっかけは
That broadened his interest into real-world crimes. It all began with...
6年生になった時、ニュージェネレーションの狂気が起きました。
When we were in 6th
2009
grade.
年です。
New Generation Madness happened. That was 2009.
本当に熱に浮かされていました。
It was like we'd gone crazy. What's this? That was me yesterday. How? Sarika's D-Sword was reading my memories now?
自分たちが住んでいる渋谷であんなことが起こっているのが最初信じられなくて、ほとんど PC に張り付いて情報を追ってました。
At first, we couldn't believe something like that was happening in the city we lived in. We spent almost the whole day glued to the computer following the news.
ああいう大きな事件が起こった時のネットって本当に数分間目を離していただけで最前線からの情報からは置いていかれるんです。
Big like that's going on. If you take your eyes off the internet for even a few hours, you get left behind.
尾上と交代しながら寝ないで事件を調べて、時には携帯でネットを見ながら事件現場に出かけて、
We stayed up all night in shifts following the case. Sometimes we used our cell phones to read the internet as we actually went out to the crime scenes and took pictures. Sarika hadn't been real then, but she had been with me anyway.
事件が進んで
More murders kept happening, and eventually they started to say Takumi Nishijo was the killer, but eventually that turned out to be wrong. Yeah?
尾上も僕もとても
Sarika and I were
興奮
very
しました。
excited. He seemed so cool.
かっこよく見えたんです、その人が。冤罪を晴らすっていうのは結局間違った情報に踊らされた人よりも正しい情報をつかんでそれを突きつけるってことじゃないですか。
Proving your innocence means getting the right information and shoving it in the faces of people whose information was bad, right?
僕が当時新聞部の今もですけどやっていたことの最も大きな形に見えたんです。
Seemed like the ultimate expression of what I was trying to do then. I guess I'm still trying to do it with the newspaper club, yeah?
すごいねこの人と尾上は言ってました。
Said it was amazing. I agreed.
同感でした。
おっとそうだ、もう一つ。なんであいつを犯人に仕立てる必要がある？お前はあいつが事件を解決すればそれでいいんだろう？
One more thing. Why do you need me to make him look like the killer? You just wanted to solve the case,
そ
right?
れは6年前に起きたニュージェネレーションの狂気がそうだったからだ。
Because that's how it was during New Generation Madness 6 years
あ
ago.
の事件も犯人と目された人間が最終的にはその冤罪を晴らし事件を解決に導いた。
It ended with the person who was believed to be the killer clearing his name and solving the case.
お前がニュージェネにこだわってんのは知ってるよ。わざわざ日付を調整してニュージェネの狂気の再来なんて呼ばれるように仕向けてきたんだからな。
I know how obsessed you are with the New Generation murders. It was your idea to make all the dates match and have people start calling it the return of New Generation Madness.
ニュージェネに寄せてあんな殺し方したのも、歴史シールを現場に残してそれをタクルに気づかせたのも。
The whole reason you patterned the murders after the New Generation killings and left the sumo stickers at the scene for Takuru to find.
全部タクルにニュージェネの再来事件を解決させるためだろ？
It was to let him sell the return of New Generation Madness, right? That was the theory I'd come up with in the newspaper club room, right? That was the theory you came up with in the newspaper club room, right? It was Sarika who was manipulating characters and setting up the game? And her real goal
殺
was
し
me.
方を決めたのはお前だろう。あんな悪趣味なものまで私のせいにするな。
You came up with the murders. Don't blame those sick things on me.
あのくらいの思考誘導試させてもらわねえと面白くねえだろ。
I have to at least test out my mind control a little or it's no fun.
んで、もうこれまでで十分お膳立ては揃ってるだろ。 なんで解決の流れまで昔の事件を真似る必要があるんだ。
We already set everything up fine this far. Why does it have to end the same way as the old case?
もう一度言う。彼を見
I'll
くび
say
る
it
な。
again. Don't underestimate him.
ああ、
宮代拓は際限なく求め続ける。彼が私を生み出した目的は。
Hirumi Ashura will keep looking. The reason he created me is... The vision changed again. It was me. It was me back then. When I ran out into the shelter. That's right, that's right.
そうだよ。
That's what I thought then. I'd met people from my class on the way there. They were probably trying to help a woman who was injured and covered in blood. They asked me to help. I couldn't move. I couldn't think clearly, even though I knew how to give first aid. They seemed to think I was just going to let the woman die, so they'd look down on me. Hope I never end up like him, their eyes said. It was what I, as a right-sider, always said about wrong-siders like them. It was the way I always looked at them. I hated when they looked at me like that. I knew all kinds of things they didn't. I should go back and tell them what to do. Were they treating her injuries right? Were they doing it in the right order? I could make the right decisions. That's what I thought.
Takuru?
Takuru?
お前、なんでここに
What are you doing here? Suddenly my parents appeared. That's right. It was when I had run into them at the shelter. They were yelling something at me excitedly, and they grabbed my arm and I shook them off.
タクル？なんなの？こんな時まで迷惑かけないで。助かるのよ。
Tucker, what are you doing? Don't start causing problems again. You're saved.
僕は
I'm saved?
助かる。
いいから、
Just
早
come
く。
with me. I like how she has the important name of Takuru's mother. You can tell she's important in this story. All I could do then was open my eyes and stare at them. I'm saved? I remember thinking that. By people who never cared about me before. I shook my arm away again. Saved me? Why? These people neglected me and now they're gonna save me? Why? Just when I thought that? I saw myself holding my head in pain. My nails dug into my flesh, but the pain didn't stop and I kept screaming inside. No, this isn't right. Those wrong-siders in class never did anything good before, and they wanted to look good now. They wanted to look at me like I was worthless. I could see myself screaming more. My head felt like they were going to burst. You're gonna save me? You, the people who gave me 1,000 yen instead of taking me out to dinner on my birthday? Hell no. I'm not the kind of person who gets saved by parents who don't even want him. My mom was yelling something, but I couldn't hear it then, and I couldn't hear it now. Shut up. You just think I'm in the way, don't you? I think the same thing. You're in my way. What else could I do? What did I want to do? Why was I here? That's right. Where's Sarika? I killed Sarika on my back to get her to the hospital. I couldn't feel her on my back through the pain in my head. But I was doing what I was supposed to do. I was saving her life. Sarika would understand that. She always told me what I did was right. She was always on my side. Suddenly everything went white. I said shut up. You people should just go away forever. Oh no. Sarika, save me. Please, please. One, please give me. That's right. These were probably Sarika's memories. That's when I made my wish. Sarika.
僕にやりたいことを与えてよ。それを叶えさせてよ。
Give me something I want to do. Help me do it. Sarika's memories came into me through the D-sword, and my memories went into her. When she knocked away my D-sword, the memories vanished. The visions vanished. Ooh. When I came back to reality, the first thing I saw was Sarika's face. It was filled with despair like she was about to cry. I'd never seen her like that before. I knew immediately she'd seen the same things I'd seen. Give me something I want to do and help me do it. That was the terrible wish I'd made. It's the only reason Sarika Onoe existed. Laughter filled the theater. Took me a long time to realize it was mine. The pain from the leg my dad had broken was getting worse, but the pain in my heart was somehow worse than that. As I rose, Sarika started to stagger backward as if she was terrified of me. When I saw her, I laughed even more. I'd survived the worst my dad could throw at me, and a single truth was about to drive me mad. I went forward, dragging my left leg behind me. I looked and saw that where I thought Sarika had stabbed me in the stomach, she'd only cut a bit of the skin on my side. It hadn't even reached my organs. This wasn't a fatal wound, which meant this was also...
全部茶番だったのかよ。
It's all just a big show. The sword Sarika had knocked away came back to me. I reached out my hands for it.
それでこのままお前が真犯人として名乗り出て終わりってわけ。
And this ends with you declaring yourself the real
違
killer?
うか。それじゃあ僕が解決したことにならないもんな。その実感が持てないもんな。
I guess not. That wouldn't mean I'd solved the case. It wouldn't feel real.
やめろ。
そうか。父さんがあくまで真犯人役か。僕が父さんを殺して自分の手で終わらせたと思ったところで僕を気絶させて。
That's it. Dad's job is to be the real killer. I kill Dad, and once I think it's over, you knock me out, and...
違う。
No.
それからお前は世間に流す情報の調整をしたのか。もしかして
Then you... I see.
さっきスマホをいじってたのはそれ。
You manipulated the information sent to the
警
public.
察にでも連絡したのか。
That was what you were doing with your phone? Did you call the police?
違う。
Even without Arimura, I could tell she was lying. Theriko was crying. She was wiping away the tears with her sleeve. She looked like a little girl. She didn't just look like what a little girl. She probably was one. She was only 6 years old.
だよな。6年前のニュージェネ事件で一度あの人は公開処刑になってるもんな。
That's right. The guy in the new generation case almost got publicly executed.
大勢の前に引きずり出さないといけないもんな。
You'd have me arrested and dragged before a bunch of people, right?
で、僕が危機に陥った時に、父さん、佐久間が真犯人だったっていう証拠が出てきて、僕は一転英雄になる。
And then what? When everything looked bleakest, evidence would come out that Sakuma's the real killer and I'd be a hero?
そういうことか。
What was it? Tell me, Onoe.
なあ、尾上。
My voice was shaking. The laughter was turning into something different. Sarika kept crying and didn't answer me. Tears started to fall from my eyes and my vision began to blur. Was this everything in our hearts was becoming tears and flowing out?
こっちみんなの大谷が死んだのも、音漏れたんの高柳が死んだのも、有村の知り合いだった柿田が死んだのも。
When Utani died in Don't Look at Me, and Takanayagi died in Leaky Noise, Arimura's friend Kikita died?
ネット記者の渡部が死んだのも、南沢千里に見せかけられたハイダが死んだのも、伊藤
Watabe the
が操
journalist
られてユイを殺したのも。
died, and when Haida died and was made to look like Senri Minamisawa, and when Ito was mind controlled into killing Yui,
ノノが死んだのも。
and when Nono died,
全部僕のせいなのかよ。
all of it's my fault.
違う。
Oh,
私がやったことだ。
I did it.
そうだ、お前がやった。僕がお前にやらせたんだ。
That's right, you did. And I made you. Ooh.
違うって言ってるだろ。
Told you that's not true. Circus D sword sliced apart some of the audience seats, but I kept going.
久野里さんの言った通りだ。僕の周りで事件に関する出来事が起きすぎてる。
Unosada was right. Too many murders are going on around me.
当然だよな。僕が解決するために仕組まれた事件なんだから。
Of course they were. The whole thing was set up so I could solve it.
僕の両親を殺したのは、あの時僕が消えてなくなれと願ったからだろう。
You killed my parents because I wish they would go away, right? Sarika didn't answer. I didn't expect her to.
事件は見事だったよ。やりたいことだったよ。美味しいネタだと思ってたよ。
The case was
僕は
perfect.
中途半端なものじゃ解決したいって最後まで思わないもんな。
Just what I wanted to do. I thought it was a great scoop. Any less, and I wouldn't have wanted to follow it till the end, right? In the end, after I solved it all that I'd be left with was emptiness and the guilt from what I'd done. That's why I knew what I had to do. Dragging my leg behind me, I made it to the edge of the stage. I could see the steps down into the audience area. All that was left was to go down the stairs and out the door. Sarika's expression changed. She was still crying, but she seemed shocked.
やめろ。
Don't do it. You must have used her mind reading technique to see what I was planning to do. She ran to the bottom of the stage to block me.
バカなことは考えるな。
Don't do anything stupid. But I looked straight at her as if to say I wasn't changing my mind.
やめてくれ。やめろ
Don't.
と言うんだ。
I said don't. Shurika raised her D sword and pointed at me. It was a warning not to go any further, but I wasn't stopping now.
お前は僕を殺せないだろう。
Can't kill me, right?
もう一度意識を奪う。目が覚めた頃には全てが終わっている。
I can knock you out
そ
again.
の時は何が起こったのかわからないかもしれないが、
When you wake up, everything will
時
be
間
over.
が経てば
You
きっ
might
と
know what
気づく。
happened, but eventually you'll realize.
何に？
Realize what?
お前が本当にやりたいことは、お前が今考えているようなことじゃない。前代未聞の事件を解決した英雄として、この世界に認められることだ。
What you want to do isn't what you're thinking. It's to be the hero who solved the unsolvable case, the man the world adores.
そんなこと
That's not what I want.
僕は望んでない。
望んでいる。私だからわかる。いや、私にしかわからないんだ。
You do? I know. No, I'm the only one who knows. Rika's words probably came from reading the deepest parts of my heart. I wouldn't deny that. She was right. If I just let her handle everything, I should be a hero. I would be a hero. If I kept going forward, all that awaited me was destruction. When I thought about it, it was scary, terrifying, but I
ど
still...
うして
Why? She was still holding the D sword. It was clear she had no intention of letting me go any further. I grabbed the hilt of my own sword and raised it as well.
来いよ。
Come. I said to her from the top of the stage. I said the same thing to her that she'd said to me in the black prison.
舞台に上がれ。尾上セリカ。
Come up to the stage, Siriko Onoe. I could see her on the other side of her D sword, looking hurt. She must have read my thoughts and realized I wasn't going to change my mind because she slowly came up. The bright lights illuminated her beautifully. I took several steps back the way I'd come so I could keep my distance. Huh? I must have lost too much blood because suddenly I staggered. My vision blurred. With only my right leg working, I was barely able to keep my balance. I couldn't stop here. I couldn't.
どうしてだ。
Why?
どうして犯人として名乗り出ようとする。いや、
Why are you trying to come
ど
forward
う
as
し
the
てそれ
killer?
が許せるんだ。
Why aren't you letting him think it was... Why are you letting him think it was you?
その情報に踊らされているのは、下に集まっている連中、情弱たちだぞ。
The only ones who believe that are the people down there, the wrong siders.
情報強者のお前が最も嫌う。情弱だ。自分たちが偽の情報に誘導されていることに気づきもしない。
You're a
疑いも
right-sider.
しない。
They're the people you hate most, the ones who don't even realize they're being manipulated by
映画
false
でも見るよう
information.
な感覚でお前の自殺を見物にやってきたくだらない奴らなんだぞ。
A bunch of idiots who came to watch you kill yourself like they're watching a movie.
お前が名乗り出ればそいつらの格好の餌だ。なんで自殺しない？クズ、いや神だ。何を叫ばれるか想像できるだろう。
You say you're the killer, that'll be just what they want. Why didn't he kill himself? He's an asshole. No, he's a god. You can imagine what they'll say. I knew that. I could easily imagine it. The ones outside the Kahariwa building right now were probably the same ones who'd been partying at Shibuya Scramble Crossing earlier. There are probably a lot of people writing irresponsible comments online. The TV is probably filled with self-proclaimed social commentators, telling the audience exactly what they wanted to hear. But I'd been the same way.
僕は情弱だ。
I'm a wrong-sider. What?
小さい頃からいつも隣にいた幼馴染のことさえ何にも知らなかった。
I didn't even know anything about the friend who'd been with me since I was a kid. I gripped the D-sword tight.
もう終わってるんだよ。
The game you've created is over.
ゲームメーカー。
The moment she hesitated, I struck myself on the back with my own powers. My vision blurred as I started to accelerate. I knocked myself forward and instantly closed the gap between myself and Serika. Caught off guard, she stepped backward and lowered her blade. She was ready to swing it upwards. I ignored her and brought mine down. She brought hers up.
Taku, どうするの？
Taku, what are you gonna do?
あの時も
Back then. Another image came to me as the D-swords collided. Her sword knocked mine away and I quickly brought it back for another strike.
ねえ、タク、最後のとこ、何か変なの映ってなかった？
Taku, did you see something weird at the end of the video?
ほら、ここ、これ、
Look,
窓の
outside the
外。
window.
あの時も
But then, I saw flashes of several different conversations. I don't know if they were my memories or hers anymore, but each time our swords collided, I saw another. Serika wasn't just a normal girl who everyone loved. She was a mastermind who set up this whole game for me. She killed Nono and Yui just to lead me to the end. The symptoms of blood loss were getting worse. My vision was darkening and it felt like I was about to pass out. She kicked me? The sudden fierce pain in my stomach knocked me off balance. I dropped the D sword and flung my hand up to try and grab it again. Ah. She kicked the sword away. It spun all the way to the edge of the stage. Stop. I fought through the pain and used my powers on the D-sword. It flew high in the air. I said stop! Sarika screamed in rage, but I couldn't stop. The D-sword spun wildly as it launched itself at Sarika. He knocked it away, but I wasn't done yet. I used my powers to make the D-sword fly again. The sword attacked her once more. He knocked it away again. Each time it came at her, Sarika knocked it down. I couldn't land an attack. Damn it, why? Why? Then I realized she was looking at me. She wasn't looking at the sword. That's right, her power. That's why I couldn't hit her. The sword lost its energy and clattered onto the floor. I fell to my knees and collapsed.
やめてくれ。
Had enough, right? Stop, please. This wasn't gonna work. She could read everything I was thinking. She knew the direction this orb was gonna come, or precisely the direction I was sending it. This is bad. The room seemed to spin and sometimes my vision would dim. I couldn't move my arms or legs. I felt cold, like I needed to throw up.
そのままおとなしく眠るといい。
Just sleep. The police will be
そ
soon.
ろ
Here
そろ
soon.
警察がここに来る。大丈夫。
Don't worry.
目
Once
が
you
覚め
wake
て
up
時
and
間
time
が経て
passes,
ば
you'll realize
お
what
前
you
は
really want.
必ず気がつく。自分。
Lorika said it again. That this was what I wanted, but I couldn't let myself believe her. What should I do? If I changed the direction of the lights to blind her and attacked? The second I thought it, she knew. If I pretended to make the D-sword appear and disappear and concealed it on stage? The second I thought of it, she'd know that too.
そうだ。
That's right. You can't beat me. Please don't move. Don't open your wounds anymore.
頼むから動かないでくれ。
I didn't have the strength left to attack her myself.
傷口を広げないでくれ。
Even if I did, it was useless to try and attack someone who could read my thoughts. What could I do? Think.
もうよせ。余計なことは考えるな。
Stop. Stop thinking about this. Think there has to be a way. I was the one who created her. Then suddenly I had an idea. Her expression suddenly changed. She was staring at me with wide eyes. Her mind reading meant she already knew. She knew exactly what I was thinking, but still.
関係ない。考えが読まれていようが、この手なら関係ない。
Doesn't matter. Even if she can read my mind, she can't stop this. When I saw the tension on her face, I was sure of it. There was still a way I could win. I formed a strong delusion in my mind. When I did, I was hit by a headache 1,000 times worse than when I normally used my powers. It was far worse than having a needle stabbed in my temples. It was like every blood vessel in my head was filled with thorns. The pain was so bad, I started to vomit up stomach acid. Oh, please stop. Sarika tried to run over to me and stopped. She kept turning around and looking at the exit near the seats. She seemed to be uncertain as to whether she should run, which meant the idea was going to work. It wasn't something anyone had taught me, but I was sure I could do it. According to Kunosada, I wasn't like other psychics who had gained a single power after being exposed to what she called the causal factor. She said I might be a true Gigalomaniac with the power to make my delusions reality. In fact, 6 years ago I'd created Sarika a human being. Which means I should be able to do this. Of course I can, right? I twisted my body upward and screamed. A huge number of D-swords appeared above my head. Of course, they were all fakes. The closest weapon to me I could easily imagine. It just so happened to be my D-sword. But I'd real booted them anyway. They shone like fierce beasts in search of prey. My head felt like it was going to burst. I imagined each blood vessel bursting one after another. Was I really imagining it? Was this going to kill me? I didn't care. I had to end it here. I had to let my puppet go free. Sarika changed the form of her D-sword and spread it out as far as it would go. She was going to try and block them all. I screamed and sent them all flying at Sarika. And so?
もしもし。
Hello?
僕です。一席ぶってもいいですか？
It's me. Can I give you a lecture before we go to the ending?
宮代、無事なのか？何があった？
Miyashiro, are you safe? What happened? Good, it connected. I could hear Arimura and the others calling my name on the other end. I felt so cold, my fingers were shaking. Turned the phone to speaker mode and started to type in the data.
例えばですけど、自分が高い建物の上の方に住んでいるとして、窓から外を見たら、女が男を殺していたとするじゃないですか。
Let's say, for example, you lived at the top of a tall building and you looked down and saw a woman killing a man.
警察に通報しようと携帯を耳に当てたとき、女がこっちを見て目が合ってしまったんです。
You put the phone up to your ear to call the police, but your eyes meet with the woman's. She points at you and says something.
口を動かしてます。
What do you think she's saying?
何を言ってると思いますか？
まさか思考誘導されてるのか。そんな信憑性皆無なサイコパス診断がどうした？
Don't tell me you're being mind controlled. Those, you know, those psychopathy tests don't work, right? I should have figured she'd know about it.
普通の人ならこう考える。例えば、そこを動くな、通報するな、とかね。でも、サイコパスは違うそうですね。
A normal person would say something like, don't move, don't call the police. But a psychopath would say something different.
1、2、3。こっちが何階にいるか数えているんだって。
You'd be counting what floor you're on. 1, 2, 3.
そう。目撃者を殺しに行くためにです。被害者側じゃなくて、加害者側に立って考えるから、ということらしいんですけど。
That's right. So that she can come kill the witness. Supposedly it's because they're thinking from the killer's perspective. Not the victim's, but... There's only silence. She must have decided there was no point in answering. But she was listening.
でも、僕も正直、そんなのは嘘だと思うんです。本当のサイコパスは、そんなこと思わないんじゃないでしょうか。
But I don't think that's right. If you ask me, a real psychopath wouldn't think
エド・
that.
ゲインでも、ヘンリー・リー・ルーカスでも、誰でもいいんですけど、もし彼らがこの質問をされたら、きっと、質問自体が理解できないと答えるでしょうね。
If you asked Ed Gein or Henry Lee Lucas or any of them really, they wouldn't understand the question.
明日の晩ご飯とか、質問した連中の服が気に入らないとか、被害者側でも加害者側でもない、どっか遠くからものを考えてると思うんです。
They'd be thinking about what they'd have for dinner tomorrow or how they didn't like the clothes the questioner was wearing. They'd be thinking about something else
ロ
entirely.
ールシャッハテストでも何でも、彼らの口から出てくる回答は、きっと意味なんてない。
It's the same with the Rorschach
Date.
test or anything. There's no meaning to the answers they give, because to them,
すべてはきっと、
it's all a
クソった
goddamn
れなゲーム
stupid
だったの
game.
から。
My fingers stopped. Felt like a long time since I'd seen that
だ
picture.
から思うんです。あいつは何を考えていたんだろうって。
So I wonder what they were thinking.
あいつ、何を聞かれても、何を喋っていても、実は別のところを見てたんです。一つの目的だけを見てたんです。あいつの口から出る言葉に、
The nothing, no matter what you said, asked them, no matter what they said, they were actually looking at something else. One single goal, so nothing they said actually mattered.
お前、思考誘導されていないな。佐久間と尾上はどうした？お前は無事なのか？
You're sure you're not being mind controlled? What happened to Sakuma and Onoe? Are you okay? Kunosada must have sensed that something was up because the tone of her voice changed.
あなたには、なんとなく分かっていたんですよね。
You kind of knew about her, didn't
あ
you?
いつの。
The wound in my stomach and the pain in my head counted the time as regularly as a clock. Thud, thud, thud. A silence 10 thuds long.
正確にはもちろん知らない。ただ、私が想像していることに近いのであれば。
I don't know the details, of course, but if what I imagine is close to the truth, then...
あいつは間違いなく向こう側だ。シリアルキラーという意味でもそうだが、 こちら側にいる一般人とは最もかけ離れた存在だ。
She was without a doubt different. In the sense, she was a serial killer, of course, but she was also as different from normal people like us as you could possibly get.
でしょうね。きっとあいつもさっきの質問をされたら回数なんか数えない。
I'm certain if you asked her that question, she wouldn't tell you about counting floors. Kunosato understood, after all. She knew that something was wrong with
ど
Serika.
うすれば僕は知ることができたんですかね。
How could I have known, you think?
そんなことはいい。答えろ。お前は無事なのか？
It doesn't matter. Answer me. Are you safe?
いえ、僕のことはいいんです。
Don't worry about me.
どうすれば彼女を理解してやれたと思いますか？
How do you think I could have understood her? I heard a small sigh on the other end, and a sharp voice that cut it off.
そんなことは不可能だ。
It's impossible.
言ったろ。あいつは向こう側の人間。いや、存在なんだ。こちら側にいるお前に理解できるはずがない。
I told you she was a different kind of human, a different kind of creature. There's no way you could have understood her at all. Kunosawa's used to the words different and normal. It was perfect, I thought. Sarika was different, I was normal. Huh?
どうした？
What's wrong? I had a sudden premonition and looked at the D-sword in my hand. I'd used this to create Sarika. That's right, I'd created her. Which meant I could do it again.
いえ、なんでもありません。
It's nothing.
すいません。後のことをよろしくお願いします。
I'm sorry. Please take care of the rest. Now she would understand. Kunosato said and Shinjo could deal with all this. I went to hang out without listening for her answer, but...
待て、宮代。一つだけ聞かせろ。
Miyashiro, tell me one thing.
はい。
Yes?
何ですか？
お前はこちら側にいると言ってしまったが。ちなみに、お前ならなんて答えるんだ？
I said you were normal back there. What would you say?
さっきの質問ですか？もちろん僕も1、2、3なんて数えないですよ。
In the question I asked?
でも通報するなとも言いません。
Of course I wouldn't be counting 1, 2, 3. Of course I wouldn't say not to call the cops either.
だってネットで先に答えを見ちゃいましたから。
Because I already saw both those answers on the internet. I ended what would probably be the last phone call of my life, and then I forced myself to get up despite all the blood I lost. My vision blurred and I staggered, but I had to keep going. I couldn't fall over just yet. I had an idea while I talked to Kunosato on the phone. But what I really needed to do with my powers, about the one way to save her, instead of releasing her. Sarika was lying face down unconscious. She was a mess. There was blood everywhere, but it wasn't fatal. She was breathing. Probably just unconscious. I forced my wounded body over to her. I put both hands around the hilt of the D-sword I'd been using to support myself. The sword had no weight, but I felt like I'd drop if I didn't. You must have heard the footsteps because Sarika gave a soft moan. She slowly raised her head and looked at me. I stood close enough to look down on her from the side, and then... Her eyes went wide in surprise, and then she started to crawl away from me. Sure is a convenient power, I told myself, now that it's too late. She knew what I was thinking without me having to even say it.
ただ、もう必要ないけどな。
You won't need it anymore, though.
嫌だ。
Sarika tried to get away, her fingers digging frantically into the stage as she crawled. She glared at me and got up, but her strength failed her, and this time she fell flat on her back. She gasped like she was drowning and quickly coughed up some blood. There were tears in her eyes. I readied the D-sword. Stop it, Taku. I stopped just once.
殺すわけじゃない。分 かってるだろ。
I'm not going to kill you, you know that. I'd rather you did. Her scream echoed violently in my ears.
どうしてそんなことを言うんだ。
Why are you saying that?
僕は
I was gonna use my D sword to change her. I was gonna change her into a normal girl with no powers who didn't kill anyone, who didn't even know I created her. I was gonna rebuild her into a normal
僕な
girl.
らそれができる。僕にしかできない。
I can do that. I'm the only one who can. I'd created her from nothing. I knew I could do it. I could make her normal. I don't want it. She was crying like a baby. Was she scared? Afraid? Why? Don't take my reason for living away from me. She was weeping, her voice desperate. I've read thoughts of mine since I was made. Everyone's worried. No one knows what to do. I can't believe they live like that. How can they smile? They don't know why they're doing it. I don't want to be normal. Her voice bounced off the stage as she hung over the empty seats, but no one but me heard it. Her tears fell on the floor, mixing with my
ダ
blood.
メだ。お前は普通の女の子になるんだ。
You're going to be a normal girl. I spoke softly as I raised the D sword high. Please, please. Let me help you. Let me help you forever. Alright. I remembered what was in Nono's letter. Forget everything and live the same life as everyone else does, but don't get buried among the crowd. It's impossible for me now, but I know you can do it.
それじゃあさよなら。
This is it. Goodbye. Saku!
13を確保。13の氏名は宮代拓18歳。私立碧峰学園3年。
Person of
宮
interest
代拓
secured.
を確保。
Person's name, Takuru Miyashiro, 18 years old, third year student at Hekiho Academy. Who was secured to Takuru Miyashiro. February 2016. 3 months later. Working at Children's Welfare Facility, Albadorm. Good morning, everybody.
You?
You?
もうできるから。
I can do it on my own now. When Uki finished washing her face and came into the dining room, Yuto was already getting breakfast ready.
私がやるって言ったのに。
I said I'd do it.
座ってていいよ。
No, you can sit down. She looked inside the kitchen and saw Yuto had already done all of Uki's work for her. Fine, she thought. I'll do the cleanup myself. Then she sat in her chair without further complaint. Lately, Uki had learned to make a few dishes without resorting to the recipe scrapbook Carissa and Yui had made. Of course, her food didn't taste quite as good, but if nothing else, she wasn't trying difficult recipes and burning the pan like she had been doing right after she came here. After a short wait, Yuto brought all the dishes to the
あ
table.
りがとう。じゃあ、いただきます。
Thanks. Okay, let's eat.
いただきます。
Let's. Yuto could make simple dishes himself now, too. It was his idea. He'd been working hard at it. 3 months after everything had happened. With its owner Sakuma and Takuru, Karus, and Yui gone, Albadorm itself was in danger. The place had only survived because of Sakuma's salary, so that was natural. When Shinjo had told them it was safe to go back to Shibuya, they both insisted on coming home to Albadorm. Shinjo insisted it was impossible, but surprisingly it was Momose who helped them out. She'd called a few favors, and Alba Clinic had become property of a completely normal private doctor, and some of the clinic's earnings were dedicated to keeping Albadorm alive. Of course, it wasn't a family like it was before. The doctor just worked at the clinic. He didn't manage the dorm. Instead, a nutritionist and nurse, both of whom were acquaintances of Momose's, would come by every day. Yuki and Yuto wanted to keep as much of their old lives as possible, so they wanted to make their own food. On weekends and days when the nutritionist wouldn't come, the two of them eagerly went to the kitchen. That's good, apparently. I think I cut it a little too thick, though. Only recently, Yuto had started to talk more. After what happened to Yui and Nono, and what had been told about Sakuma and Takuru, he'd become nothing but an empty shell. The one thing that had saved him was that even then he'd stayed close to Uki. He wanted to be with someone. Of course, the wounds in his heart hadn't healed. They probably never would. The loneliness and regrets would come back to haunt him again and again. Uki herself sometimes had trouble sleeping at night. When that happened, she'd go to Yuto's room because he was afraid of being alone at night, she'd say, and the two of them would endure the terror together. The two of them were brother and sister, inseparable now, just like Nono and Takuru had been. About the proposal? Uki's chopstick suddenly froze. I'm okay with it. What? She didn't expect that answer. She thought Yuto would refuse. You better have someone use them, I think. They were thinking of accepting new members at Albador, which would mean they'd have to use Takuru or Nono's room. He wanted to save them personally. Nono wasn't coming back, but she wanted to believe that Takuru might. But if Yuto had made his decision, as the older sister, she had to support him. You're right. She smiled the best she could and started to eat more of her little brother's cooking. Ciao, it's Hina. Wait. Isn't that goodbye? Anyway, the door opened and Hina Aramura walked into the newspaper club room. Oh, you get free period too, Hana? Back to ESO too? The owner of the room raised a hand in greeting without even looking up like she always did. It is good today. She'd learned how to tell from the sounds on the keyboard. It's not a disaster, apparently. Aramura sat in her usual spot and took out the book she was reading, Teru Miyake's famous 6,000 Lives and Deaths. There'd been an awful lot of free periods lately, and during each one she'd either come here and read a book or work on a novel as part of her literature club activities. Miyashiro, Kirisu, and Ito were gone, so Kazuki was always here alone. He almost never said anything. There was no need to worry about hearing lies. It was the perfect place for her. After the incident, she'd spent several weeks in Akihabara before suddenly being allowed to go back to Shibuya. Allowed wasn't the right word. She'd been dragged back there. She hated it, but even if it meant another fight with her family, there was nothing else she could think of doing. There hadn't been any problems with psychics since then, at least publicly. Sometimes Shinjo would call to check on her, but nothing special was going on. She'd never expected the case to end like it did. Oh? She saw an unfamiliar expression in the book, so she decided to copy it down into the notebook she kept in the newspaper club. Handwriting was the best way to do this stuff, she thought. There was no class in just typing everything to a computer. She stood up and looked for it on the steel shelves against the wall. But it wasn't where she thought it was. She reached her hand towards the back of the shelf. Oops. And the papers that had been piled there fell off. Armor and Kazuki froze when they saw one of them. It was a big map folded many times over. She didn't have to spread it out to know what it was. It was the one the newspaper club put on the wall when they were going over the case. But there was no need for it anymore. The first thing Kazuki had done if she'd come back to this room was take it off the wall. Armor had come back a few weeks later, but she hadn't said a word about it vanishing. It'd be more accurate to say she wouldn't. You know, come to think of it. They said Seri reacted to the light a little. It's a sign she might wake up, they say. It was something Shinjo had told her on the phone. Kazuki turned around to look at her. What will you do? Her face seemed to say. Armor frowned and scratched her head. We'll do exactly what Miyashiro wanted, I guess. There was nothing else she could do. That was the promise she'd made with him. Kazuki nodded and looked somewhere else. Armor followed her gaze. She was looking at the chairs where Miyashiro and Sarika used to sit. For what it was worth, Arimura hadn't sat there in a single time since she started coming here. Where is Ito? He's probably still recovering, but she said, It's only been 3 months, and Kunosada said he'd make it, so he's probably in recovery. Alright, looks like Sari's recovering too. What it was worth, Armor hadn't sat there a single time she started coming here. Yep.
じゃあ、伊藤君の方はもう完全に白?
That Ito's completely innocent? That was Momose's first question after hearing what had happened at the hospital.
はい。
Right.
だいぶ回復してきましたが、本当に思考誘導されていただけのようですね。
Correct. He really was being mind controlled, it seemed. It's safe to assume he has no information on the committee.
あと可能性があるのは、尾上と宮代だけなんですが。
The only other possibilities are Onoe and Miyashiro, but
この状況じゃね。
not the way things are looking, yeah. Kunosada and Momose both sighed at the same time. Sakumo is dead. They'd gone over everything he owned as well as his body and learned barely anything. He'd found, with the help of her very, very strange acquaintance in Akihabara, that Sakuma had indeed worked in the basement under a Tokyo General, but nothing else. All the data was gone. There's no data left of Sakuma. They had to admit it, but the committee was good at their work and fast. Even the police didn't seem to know who he was. Rip. That night, 3 months ago, she still didn't know what happened between the three of them then. If what she was imagining was correct, especially in light of her last call with Miyashiro, there was indeed a need to question what Sarika had told her at Furisha. He talked a lot about the committee, but looking back, there was a good chance it was a lie used to gain Kunosada's cooperation. As proof, even after she'd taken the psychics out of Shibuya, nothing had happened. Her hacker acquaintance had checked his network and hadn't seen anything at all. With no reason to stay in Akihabara anymore, she'd come back to Shibuya. While she was gone, all threads connecting Sakuma to the committee had vanished. Either she'd screwed up, or maybe...
やはり佐久間は末端組織の人間でしかなかったということか。
Or maybe he was no one of importance at all, which meant they simply gave up on him when he was no longer useful. But there was a lot of equipment that had disappeared from that underground facility. Even if he was the one who'd moved it, someone else must be in charge of it now. She could find out who that person was.
あと、たどれる可能性があるとすれば。
The other chance is... Momose looked at Kunosada and tapped her own temples.
ここね。カオスチャイルド症候群。
In here, Chaos Child Syndrome.
はい。
You're right. That was the one route she still had open to her. It was the piece of evidence she had chosen to use to get her revenge on the committee. The strange disease that had started showing up in certain victims of the quake. Her phone began to vibrate in her pocket. She saw the name on the phone and realized it wasn't time for his usual check-in. That meant something happened.
どうした?
What is it? Is this Shinjo?
尾上が
Yep. Oh no, it has. Man, who the fuck would want to go to this hospital after all this? Holy shit, this hospital is super shady. She slowly stepped into the hospital room. After all we found out about this hospital, the fact that they went there is super questionable. The room was clean, the air was pure. She nodded, satisfied with that. It was disappointing no one brought any flowers, but in light of his condition, there was no helping that. The curtain was closed, so she couldn't see him from here. She walked softly without sound. She approached the bed nervously. She put her hand on the curtain and slowly opened it. The version she was looking for was lying there. It looks pretty empty to me, I'm gonna be honest. She sighed in relief and brought her face close to his, as if giving a kiss to a loved one. It was close enough that her short hair fell on his face. He's fine. Yeah, he's fine. He lost a little weight, but it was still the face of the boy she'd known for years. She opened the window. Fresh air blew into the room. The weather was great. It was perfect. Perfect day to go outside. Right?
行こう、タ
Let's go,
ク。
Taku.
速報です。本日午前9時過ぎ、ニュージェネレーションの狂気の再来と呼ばれる連続殺人事件を引き起こした犯人、
宮代拓が収容先の病院から姿を消しました。
Breaking news. As of 9 a.m. this morning, the killer behind the return of the New Generation Madness murders, Takuru Miyashiro, disappeared from a prison
現場
hospital.
には争ったとみられる警察官の遺体が残されており、
The bodies of several guards were found evidently killed in a struggle.
なお犯人を病院に収容していた理由ですが、警察はカオスチャイルド症候群者である宮代拓を検査するためと釈明しており、警備体制に問題はなかったと。
As for the reason the killer was kept in the hospital, police have stated he was being examined for a Chaos Child Syndrome patient and there was no problem with the site's security. Oh, interesting. What a fucking weird last chapter. Alright. Oh, this is pretty loud, isn't it? That is really loud. That should be better. Alright, that's Chaos Child playthrough 1. Okay. So Ito is, we don't know, still recovering. Our protagonist was in a prison hospital and broke out killing a bunch of people. Alright then. I'm gonna be honest, I was thinking things were going really well. I actually like most of the ending until we got to that last scene where it's like he randomly wakes up, kills people, and escapes? What?
ねえ、タク、叶えられた？やりたいこと。
Did I get to do what I wanted to? The end, ladies and gentlemen. I think we'll keep going. We'll resume this next time. We'll be starting playthrough number 2. Look to see the next video in a couple days, starting playthrough 2 if you enjoyed that.